Have you seen the sub overemployed? It's tips and glorification for people who want to secretly work two remote jobs at the same time. Oh my fucking lord, that is genius. This is incredible. Overemployed. Hello from Isaac, founder of Overemployed. Hello, Overemployed Nation. FAQ and more is available at the website. All right, read before posting. Is this forcing me to do it? Okay, it's their shit website. New to working multiple jobs? Welcome to the overemployed lifestyle. Start here with our most frequently asked questions. If you're going for a more junior role for J2 or J3, you might want to leave out experiences that make you overqualified. That might mean leaving out J1 entirely. Wait, what is this? I need like a baby brain level. Is working multiple jobs even legal? What about non-compete clauses and company policies? Yes, generally it's legal to work multiple remote jobs, period. Enforceability of your contract depends on the country. The laws across different jurisdictions and countries can be tricky, so yes, we recommend consulting an employment lawyer to fully understand your risk. Don't ever accept a role that would create a conflict of interest, though. Okay, I need like a baby's first explanation of it. Top posts of all time? Okay, now you're helping. I did overemployed for a time, was pulling 250K. It was dumb and it was actually totally manageable. I start job 5 on Monday. 1.2 million a year. Here's my path and some thoughts on this crazy life. Okay, how can I believe this guy? Got fired from job 2 today. I was fired from job 2 today and I don't feel anything. I don't give a shit because I'm overemployed, bitches. Started job 2 approximately 15 months ago. It was fine at the start. Project was slow to get started. A few meetings here and there. I did the work and went to the meeting. Started to gain some traction. About 4 months ago, my boss wanted me to start pulling together a lot of business plans based on my hypothetical situation without any consumer interaction. I pushed back and asked for more access to internal and external customers to get feedback. I was told that they wanted blah, blah, blah. Being the good OE deviant I am, I immediately reached out to a few people that I know in the recruiting world and told them my service would soon be available. In the meantime, I still attended meetings, but basically stopped doing any real work. You're ending my employment based on blocking a transfer to another team within the org that could benefit from my skills and depriving me of my job. It could be construed as intentional interference of economic advantage. I think 8 weeks is a much more appropriate number. They came back and agreed to my 8 weeks, which comes around to 31K before taxes and paying my full weeks of vacation, 3 weeks of vacation accrued. Can we make this sub private? J2 bought J1. Now I'm getting laid off and getting 6 months severance. Make this sub private for the love of God. This is incredible. This is incredible. This is basically, in case you're wondering, I'm just like scanning a Reddit and being an idiot and not narrating enough. But basically, this is people who are just working multiple remote jobs at the same time and collecting like five paychecks at once. I mean, if you do the work. So here's the thing, chat. This makes perfect sense because people just sit on their jobs doing shit most of the time. So if you're actually productive for 8 full hours a day, you could work 5 jobs. I'm in IT. I have a fairly niche title that everybody wants right now. I have 5 full-time jobs, 4 of which are Fortune 500 companies. If I manage all 5 for a year, I will make 1.2 million in 2022. I made $16 an hour in 2016. I'm still struggling grasping the sheer amount of money dumping into my bank account. Damn, that's so much. At the start of 2021, I got a new job. It paid around 70K, more than I was making in my previous job. It's 105 to 170K. I had the inside scoop from a previous coworker, so I was able to name drop and negotiate effectively. I was tempted to keep both jobs since due to COVID, both were fully remote. My fiancée is incredibly risk averse, so she talked me out of it. As I got situated in my new position, I became increasingly set on getting a second job. I played video games from 8 to 4, sat in meetings barely paying attention. I've probably done around 15 hours of real work since I started January last year. In April, I opened my resume to the world, and by June, I bagged a job 2, 82 bucks an hour. Holy crap, 2 jobs. I was giddy with the money, terrified of meetings overlapping, and horrified if they found out about each other. As I settled into job 2, I found the meetings to be tedious. There were around 4 hours of meetings each day for job 2. I suffered through them, agreeing to job 3, having never stopped interviewing. I just made my salary expectations higher and waited for something to fall in my lap. My thought process was that job 3, 90 an hour corp to corp, would likely replace job 2 as job 1 is a laughable cakewalk. However, since I am now in the position of power, I decided to flex it a little bit. I told my project manager that the meetings were a waste of my time. They get nothing done. They didn't contribute to my work at all. I now participate in an average of 45 minutes of meeting each week for job 2. Job 3 is also a cakewalk, around 1.5 hours a week of meetings, probably 5 hours a week worth of work. I continue to feel at any job that will hear my salary expectations. I am now saying 45 an hour is my salary expectations. Another corp to corp gig comes around. The hiring manager loves me. Once again, being in a position of power, I am able to set my expectations with zero fear of the results. Given the scope of the work, my salary expectation is 105 an hour. The highest we could do is 100. Nope. They gave me my request. They then tried to push back my start date a week. I told them I already gave my 2 weeks at my previous job. They will need to pay for me for the absent week. They hemmed and hawed. They tried to say no. I simply told them that I wouldn't work there then. They paid me $4,200 for a week that I didn't even sign in. I expect this job might fold quickly, as with a very prestigious company, there is quite a bit of spotlight on my role. It turns out I haven't done fuck all since I started mid-October. I have $4,200 a week to go to a stand-up each morning to say I have nothing to do since October. Job 4 is somehow an even bigger cakewalk than job 1. This is fan fiction, isn't it? This is fucking fan fiction. This is real copium, yeah. First of all, I want to believe it's real. I feel like you could pull off a couple jobs. I feel like you could pull off a couple jobs. 5? No fucking way. We need to see some pay stubs. Exactly. That's the only way I'm gonna believe. See, this website is funny. This Reddit is funny, but there's no like moderation and no like legitimacy. So I just consider this a fan fiction at this point. Monday, I start job 5. I initially have it agreed to 115. I tried to press them for 127 an hour, but ended up at 120. This appears to be another job that I would just sort of expect to get fired from, but hopefully it turns out to another easy 5K a week for doing jack shit. Let's talk about the things I think are working for me. Be fearless. After all, once you get job 2, your risk absolutely plummets. It is ingrained in you to be terrified of getting fired. That fear can fucking die when you move into your second role. The amount of relief of not having to worry about what your boss thinks of you, or you accidentally overslept and might piss off some clown in charge, it all fades. It's beyond freeing. Be willing to get fired. I have the luxury of having job 1 be a cakewalk with incredible benefits. So from there, who gives a fuck about getting fired from job X? I just try to keep job 1 happy. In the future, probably not saying things like I'm going to actively find a new job, and I don't really give a shit about the others. I try to do the absolute bare minimum to keep all the jobs, since replacing one is a pain, but any fear of getting fired just isn't there. Flex your power. Be willing to say, I can't make that meeting, or this meeting is a waste of my time. People don't want to rock the boat. They want to do something that might be stupid. Use the fact that most people also want to do the bare minimum to get by, and I have zero pushback when I'm asked meetings to be moved, or hey, I can't make the stand-up today. Fuck having to defend yourself. Just say, I can't make it. I have gotten zero pushback on this. Use your power position and not needing to listen about the job that is offering that paltry 65 an hour. Recruiters have a range. Demand the range. If it doesn't fit 10 to 15 bucks an hour more than your current job, tell them no. I eagerly accepted a role at 82 an hour 6 months ago. Christmas Eve, I accepted a position for nearly 50% more than that. Flex your power. Job 2 takes the power out of your employer's hands and plants it firmly in your own. Use it to climb, grow, and make your life what you want. I have paid off my debt already, bought a second house, will have enough money to completely revamp both houses by the end of February, plan on snowbirding from Florida to West Virginia for the foreseeable future at the ripe age of 35. Since all debt free, maybe I'll cut down to 2 jobs, maybe I'll just dump money into a retirement. Starting your own S Corp is fucking powerful. Talk to a CPA. Maybe I don't really give a fuck, because the world, for the first time in my life, is my fucking oyster. Even though I have 4 active jobs right now, I still play video games 4 to 5 hours a day. Wow. This is the most Reddit post I've ever seen. This is incredible fan fiction. Being truthful, most people I've worked with the IT industry work their main 8 to 5-ish job and also run small consulting companies where they have contracts with small clients. Yes, they answer their calls while at their main job. This is totally real, chat. Oh, man. I had a friend when I used to mod Wall Street Bets, who worked 2 IT jobs as a network engineer. He was banking bank, not fanfic. The guy sat and traded all day and maybe went to meetings once or twice a week. I work IT and literally watch you all day. Okay, motherfuckers. If you're an IT employee and you're sitting on your lazy fucking ass, not doing any work, making 6 fucking figures with job 3, I expect some goddamn subs. Why am I not at 6,000 subs if I have people like that in my community, you cheap fucks? This is ridiculous. I need to believe this isn't true, but I know people who do almost nothing for a lot of money. I'm working physical labor 12 to 16 hours a day right now. X Chronos, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. And right now I want to cry. Yeah, no shit, because you're doing real shit. But I'm only making 5 figures. Okay, well, fine. You can save your money. Rebel Scum, thank you. When you get over job 3, the next step is to start your own business and get as many clients as you can. Hire and teach employees to do the work. This will allow you to go over 1 million long term without any legal trouble. Can you explain this concept? The concept there's many contract jobs which exist solely to suck out company money. Usually these jobs are filled with H-1B contractors who do mostly nothing. This could be you. I spent 2 years at a company doing such a job. Guess which country 90% of my coworkers were from? After I stopped showing up, my manager noticed it after 3 weeks. My coworker waited for a task for 3 months after being hired. You can be such an employee for 60 to 100 bucks an hour. Simple. Get many remote jobs and suck at all of them until you get fired. I think most people think the bare minimum is much higher than it actually is. There's a lot of sighing, a lot of, this roadblock, or, I ran out of time this week. So these guys are literally just scamming. This is fucking incredible, honestly. This is fucking incredible. But here's what I would say about Reddit. If you believe Reddit is real, you're gonna be disappointed. It's false. It's fake. Ego Trip, thanks for the tier 1. And Walkin' I Hank, thank you for the tier, gifting a sub. And OYs, thank you for the tier 1. J3R Degree, thank you for gifting a sub to Kibby. And Doc Rouse, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Ikiton X, thank you very much, sir, for 32 months at tier 3. Holy fuck, man. Rebel Scum, thank you, everybody. Thanks for supporting the stream. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. You can just watch and be chill. Obviously, you know, if you support the stream, it makes my life a hell of a lot better. It would be nice to be back at 4,000 subs. You know, that would be nice, not gonna lie. I'm sure there are people out there like this, but they do not make a fucking post about it. Well, chat, there are people like this.
My father said to me, Wyatt, you can do whatever you want to in life, but just make sure you do it well and you do it with passion. Every day I go to the office, I enjoy creating the clothes. Be bold means to me, be authentic, be real, be yourself, be confident.
I will never get over his sketch. They put it in. They put in his sketch. And it's so bad. I can't believe he would be like, yeah, use this as advertising.
And always be a gentleman, but still have that tenacity that no one can take away from you. I want my shirts to be able to be worn in the boardroom or in a discoteca or a nightclub or on a yacht. I really wanted to create something that's fun, outside the box, cool, trendy, yet really bold and interesting.
Now, chat, if you're like, who the fuck is this? This is Wyatt Koch. This is one of the fail sons of the Koch family. This is what conservatives spend their entire political careers protecting.
Be authentic, be real, enjoy creating the clothes. Make sure
this is their entire political careers is how can we protect this guy's trust fund? How can we make sure that he can get ego tripping, get job 2, get job 3, get 4 jobs, and then you could set aside one of the jobs as just like your central committee stream support, and you could just gift me the subs, you know, like I got job 4, here you go, and it's just like you give me 1,000 subs. And like, this is the entire conservative movement, by the way, is protecting this guy, this round boy. If anybody needs anything, make sure that you come hang out in the Discord server. Got over 6,000 leftists in there, so they're always great places to have conversations, hang out. I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, as I always am, Monday to Friday, and let's watch this one.
I've made less money every year for 9 years in a row.
Verizon workers are unionizing. Let's fucking go. Be right back.
Verizon made $4.5 billion in profit, but they're taking up to 40% in hard-earned commission check from their frontline employees.
This year, our raises were essentially pay cuts. They were almost meaningless compared to the cost of living increase.
You can't schedule family events, doctor's appointments, or any kind of stable living. It's all focused around the chaotic nature of Verizon's schedule.
Our management was completely unaware that we were organizing this union. We caught them totally off guard when we went public with the union. I CC'd them on the email to Hans just to let them know that we were organizing. So immediately, the day after, I sent an email to Hans Vestberg, the CEO of Verizon. They flew out a union buster the next day.
I've been told by management, that I should be grateful for what I have, and I should be grateful for the pay I have, because it's a lot better than what other people are getting.
I think the team is doing a great job, and as I said, I mean, you see it in the numbers right now. Even if you compare to 2019, we're up on every metrics.
I see my coworkers struggle to pay rent. I see my coworkers living at work more than they live at their homes. I see my coworkers struggling to support their families, and it makes me sick to my stomach to think that the people that aren't living at Verizon are thriving and buying fancy cars and able to have families, able to go to school.
Verizon is systematically sort of taking away all of our support in the stores. When I first started 9 years ago, we had a ton of support in our store. We had, 3 assistant managers, we had operations specialists in each stores, we had a GM for each store.
Hey, the more people they fire, the less money they make. What do you know?
Over the years, Verizon has, laid off the operations people. Verizon's laid off our experience reps who used to greet our customers and make our store flow better. And they just handed out those responsibilities to those that were left, and they didn't hand out their pay. Verizon just kept that for themselves.
They can move us around from one location to another location without us really having a say to do or choose. We just want more of a say in our own livelihood, better work-life balance.
Gimme!
I experienced being cornered, being isolated, threats in the sense of a threat with a smile, unspoken rules, passive aggression.
They do almost more than yearly campaign of just anti-union training. What to do if somebody approaches you with a card to sign up for a union. This union card may be legally binding. Don't trust anything that the CWA says. Basically,
it's pretty easy to tell when someone's being manipulative, but they came in to use my values, my traumas, and my life against me to change my mind, because they didn't want me to make a union. They didn't want me to support something that could help me. They were convincing me that what I thought was right was not right.
The Starbucks workers right now are such a huge inspiration, because it's one of the biggest companies. Like, everybody goes to Starbucks, everybody knows where Starbucks is.
They are similarly situated to us. There are a lot of small stores. We're not organizing, 1,000 people in a warehouse. We're organizing, 10 people, 2 stores at a time, pretty much.
If we can get more of us together, join together, we can make a lot more changes.
It's time to stand up. It's time to talk to your coworkers. The more stores that stand up and join us and have a voice with us, the more power we'll have at the bargaining table to get what we truly deserve.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah, dude. Holy shit.
That's the power that got him. He shot up the citizens, the citizens.
And toss the press conference. Brooklyn. Jay, it's good to talk.
Motive, because I think that's what people want to know more than anything else. What was the motive behind this attack? And it has to be determined what others involved. If
government automatically doing your taxes for free using our tax money we pay toward the IRS is such a slam fucking dunk issue. Nobody likes doing their taxes or paying for them. The shit is a layup for free job approval points if the Dems had any fucking brains at all. Because the Democrats don't want the government to be effective. You don't understand. They're not leftists. They're not liberals. They're neoliberals. They believe in competition above all, markets above all. They don't give a fuck about good government. They don't give a fuck about what's right or what maximizes human happiness. They want to maximize profit-making opportunities. That's it. If you went in there and said, we're going to make government make sense, we're going to get rid of all the bullshit red tape in your life. You don't have to get health insurance anymore. Taxes are done for you. Marijuana's legal. You don't have to pay your student loans. If they actually enhanced people's lives and cut down on the bullshit, and then most importantly, took credit for it, they would be popular, but they don't believe in any of that. They don't believe in any of that, man.
so what role did they play? Because they would have to be brought in as well. So this is going to be interesting, Lester, going forward over the next couple of days. So I would say next steps, continued investigation, gather as much evidence as we can, even though he's in custody.
Yeah, and of course, we'll want to find out if he had, if other attacks might have been planned here. All right, Cedric,
Absolutely.
Thanks. Let me go back, if I can, to Pete Williams. Pete, you have some new reporting.
Lester, we've been sent this photo here. I'm going to ask our camera operator to push in on it. This is a picture of the arrest that happened just a short time ago in the East Village of New York after a Crime Stoppers tip alerted authorities to the presence of Frank James. And we're told that
it's wild that someone could shoot up a subway and then stay in the same city. Criminals are wild, man. Criminals are wild, man. See, that's the thing. I'm watching live coverage, chat. They what can you do?
This photograph shows the arrest just a short time ago in the East
people
Village.
Shoot up a subway and then just chill.
After he was after the arrest was made, he was taken to a local
Unfortunately, we talked about this topic earlier. I decided to nuke the VOD then.
We believe that one of the reasons they're so confident it's him is not only did he match the physical description, but he also had ID on him identifying himself as Frank Robert James, the man who was born August 8th of 1959. These are pictures that the New York authorities put out this morning to try to aid in the discovery. Now, there was a Crime Stoppers tip, a call into the police public tip line that apparently led to the arrest. And we've heard some interesting theories about who it was that made that call. We don't know who it was yet. But in any event, that's what led authorities to this scene where the arrest was made there a short time ago.
All right, Pete Williams, thank you. Again, our headline, we came out on the air to report an arrest in that subway attack in New York, Brooklyn, New York, yesterday. That concludes our coverage for now. We'll have much more this evening on NBC Nightly News. For all of us here at NBC News, I'm Lester Holt in New York. Have a good day.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Yasmin Vasugian. You have been watching an NBC News special report. NBC News has just learned police have arrested the suspect in the Brooklyn subway shooting.
Most criminals don't think proactively. Yeah, of course.
Police arrested Frank James in Manhattan's East Village after a tip from Crime Stoppers. The attack at rush hour Tuesday morning wounded at least 10 people and left 13 others hurt. We're awaiting a news conference from the NYPD. We'll bring that to you as soon as it begins. The suspect has been identified as 62-year-old Frank James. You're looking at his picture right there on your screens. He was initially considered a person of interest, but was named the suspect early this morning. Want to bring in NBC News correspondent Jay Gray, who's standing by for us in Brooklyn. Jay, it's good to talk to you this afternoon. The city really breathing a sigh of relief after 27 hours in limbo. Of course, I was on the scene yesterday as this story broke, and there was already some trepidation in riding the subway system because of the increase in crime. How are folks feeling now, Jay?
Wow. NBC basically right-wing propaganda.
Yeah, Yasmin, you're absolutely right. It was very tense here throughout the morning. People very guarded and very concerned with this suspect on the run. We see smiles and laughter over the last 15 to 20 minutes. A lot of people very openly relieved that this arrest has been made and feeling a lot better, not only about the situation in this neighborhood, but riding the subway. As you know, as so many people understand, that subway is really the lifeblood of this city.
Yet another billions for the city's police who spent this morning terrorizing the unhoused while the shooter is caught wandering around aimlessly by a concerned citizen.
Hi, how are you? What is your name?
I'm good. My name is Zach. I was working inside the store and I was doing security cameras inside, and I see the guy, he walking from the screen. I see him from the cameras. So I thought, oh shit, this guy. Let me call the police. And I call him and we catch him.
Zach, you are a hero. Thank you so much.
No problem. We try
you.
to make the people safe always, because
Of course. And this is the secret. By the way, Chad, this is not surprising at all. We live in when you have a society that's in peace, it's though because of mutual consent of all the individual citizens. It's not imposed by an outside authority. The outside authority is just there to reinforce already existing social norms. That's the actual way you get. That's the way you actually get
for police
security.
and federal investigators. We know that throughout the early morning, the suspect, James, was spotted on security video from the inline, from different stations on the inline. He apparently boarded and rode the train for several hours, according to law enforcement sources, before carrying out the attack here. Now, there is no video from the 36th Street station. That camera, as we now know, wasn't functioning at the time of the attack. As that was going on, as they were looking at that video, federal agents traced the weapon used in the attack back to James. It was purchased legally 11 years ago in Ohio, so that was another key piece to all of this. They do say that it appears he acted alone. And then there's those videos that everyone's been talking about all morning, dozens of just irate, at times bigoted rants. In at least one of the videos, he talks about the mayor here, Eric Adams, and his effort to reduce crimes in the subways, and then goes on to say in others that he wants to talk about a race war. There's a need for more mass shootings. Again, those are his words, and claiming he had the desire to kill certain groups of people, but that he didn't want to go to jail. Apparently did not want to go so desperately that he was on the run for, as you talk about, just over 27 hours. So he is in custody now. One other note to add to all of this. We learned midday today that the Metro card linked to his credit card, to James's credit card, was used last night. So he may have been riding the subway last night, just hours after the attack.
A lot of troubling circumstances there, to say the least. But of course, everybody happy now that the suspected shooter now is in custody 27 hours after that horrific attack yesterday morning. Jay, great for us. Thank you. Want to bring in now retired ATF Special Agent in Charge, Jim Kavanaugh. Jim, I just want to give you a heads up. We're awaiting this press conference. I got about a 2-minute warning. So if I got to cut in and talk.
He was mentally ill. He's a mentally ill conservative. Reactionary who, race war rhetoric, attacking groups of people. This is what we call a right-winger chat.
The press conference, I'm going to do that.
No surprise.
I'm not trying to be rude. Just want to give you a heads up on that. Talk to me, Kavanaugh, because 27 hours later, they have now identified and arrested this individual who is being accused of unloading bullets on subway riders. 10 of those injured, 13 others as well, due to smoke inhalation. What do you make of the timing of this arrest 27 hours later? And the fact that it was really because of a tip through the Crime Stoppers?
Yes. Well, that's right, Yasmin. What it is New Yorkers got shot up and New Yorkers caught him. The citizen tip caught him. So when we talked yesterday all over the network about leveraging the power of the citizens of New York with law enforcement. It's law enforcement and the citizens of New York versus this one guy. And that's the power that got him. He shot up the citizens. The citizens caught him with the Crime Stoppers tip. So it's a good day for the Big Apple. I mean, I think everybody should.
So all that money and it was a citizen, as usual.
Really feel elated about this. This guy is an extraordinary criminal. This is not a run-of-the-mill criminal that's on the subway or the city streets of any city.
Law enforcement responded to a call.
And the mayor says he's working hard to
Thanks for all the investigative work.
But this guy was extraordinary in that he was shooting, a mass shooting on the subway. So this is a big sigh of release. You live in the city, your kids, you got to feel better about this. The cops were all over it. The federales were all over it.
What? The brain worms, man. I can't listen to the shit. Guzman Felix was dragged out of a corner store and fatally stabbed to death, allegedly by a gang known as the Trinitarios. NYPD officers observed the incident, did not render aid once the gang members were gone, and the teen bled to death on a sidewalk while trying to make it to the hospital on foot. Then the NYPD commissioner defended the police officers, supported by media outlets like the New York Post, portraying the gang members as animals. I mean, this happens time and time again. This is the reality of how, this is what cops do. This is what happens. Even if there was a cop in the fucking train, this is what would have happened.
If you've ever been on the internet, I mean, you're here right now, you probably wound up in the comments section of at least one article about a mass shooting, some other kind of killing spree, and seen dozens of assholes make comments like,
dude, if I was there, I would have totally stopped that guy. I totally know Kung Fu, and I just knock the weapon out of his hand and then break his neck with a spin kick, and then my mom would finally love me.
My name is Joe Lazito, and one day in 2011, my morning commute was interrupted by the tail end of a 28-hour-long stabbing spree. The reason that spree ended is because I stopped it, and I learned. The stabber, Maxim Gelman, was already famous across the city. I didn't know any of that, though, because I'd gotten up too early to catch the paper. So when an obviously high person staggered crazily into the train, I just kind of figured morning in New York, you know? That creepy guy, who I'd later learn was Gelman, started banging on the door of the engineer's compartment.
Let me in.
I was sitting right by the door. The only thing separating the engineer and myself was a wall. It turned out there were 2 cops on the other side of the door, lying in wait in case Gelman hopped on this train. I found out later they'd recognized him, but they didn't charge out to stop him. Instead, they asked him a polite question.
Who are you? I'm the police. You're not the police.
You'd expect 2 armed cops to, I don't know, maybe do something about a wanted fugitive spree killer that they were on the train specifically to arrest, but they stayed put. So Gelman walked up to me, whipped out an 8-inch knife and told me,
"You're going to die."
Then he stabbed me. I was in the sort of situation every man thinks about at least twice a day. Suddenly thrust into a life or death situation that required me to become a badass. Unfortunately, I had no badass training, but I have watched a lot of MMA, and when he brought back his arm to stab me again, I decided to dive in for a single leg takedown. It should have looked like this. But in reality, I shot in too high and wound up tackling him by the waist, rather than getting him in the leg. So he stabbed me repeatedly in the skull. The good news for you armchair badasses is that you can have no idea what you're doing but still succeed on dumb luck and balls. I outweighed Gelman by a lot, so he went down despite the power of a knife on his side. So we're both on the ground, I'm on top, and he still got his stabbing machine in hand. I tried to grab his right hand, which held the knife, with my left. But I missed, and he sliced me good in the thumb. I tried to catch him a second time and failed, so he slashed me again in my left tricep. My third grab was a chom, though. I caught his hand and slammed it into the ground. He dropped the knife. Once I had him pinned and was, dying of blood loss, the cops decided it was safe enough to arrest Gelman. Next thing I remember is a cop tapping me on the shoulder. "You can get up now, we got him." I thought that was being charitable, but at the time I didn't exactly feel argumentative. There was no pain yet, just this warm feeling from the blood gushing out of me. It was like standing in the shower with warm water spraying the top of your head and flowing down the back of your neck. And again, when you'd expect the police to jump to my aid, they didn't. None of them even touched me. The only guy to render aid was another passenger, Alfred Douglas, aka Napkin Man, because he staunched my bleeding injuries with napkins. I think Napkin Man probably saved my life, but at this point I'd been stabbed roughly all the times a person can be stabbed while remaining conscious. And so I passed out. When I eventually came to in the hospital, it was kind of frustrating to realize that none of the early coverage mentioned me or Napkin Man. The police gave all the credit to the...
NYC cop tackles rampage suspect on train. Carjacking details emerge. Police patrol. The Law Enforcement Magazine.
Police gave all the credit to the 2 officers who'd been in the subway train with me, only neither of them actually even left the booth until I disarmed Gelman. During the grand jury hearing, one of the cops testified, "I started to come out, I opened the door, but I thought Gelman had a gun, so I closed the door and stayed inside." I can see how in a stressful situation you might mistake a knife for a gun, but also that kind of makes it more infuriating. If you...
Same exact shit happened in the Parkland shooting. Pussy-ass cops hide and let people get hurt instead of actually doing their job. No shit. This is actually an underreported story. In the Parkland shooting, there was a cop and he was hiding. And the Parkland school shooting, they had a cop, but he hid the whole time.
Mr. Cop A. Policington thinks this insane, drug-addled murderer has a gun, and he's sitting on a train bound for Times Square. Don't you want to stop him at all costs? So yeah, I decided to sue the NYPD. The first case I brought got dropped, so I acted as my own lawyer for the second case and finally made it to a judge. The judge said,
"Mr. Lozito's version of the story sounds highly credible, and his version of events rings true."
But I still lost the case. Here's how that was justified in its original legalese.
No direct promises of protection were made to Mr. Lozito, nor were there direct actions taken to protect Mr. Lozito prior to the attack. Therefore, a special duty did not exist.
It turns out there was a major piece of legal precedent in my way. In 2005, the Supreme Court ruled on Castle Rock v. Gonzalez. In that case, a woman sued the Castle Rock PD after they failed to respond when she complained that her estranged husband had violated a protective order and abducted their kids. He eventually murdered them. The Supreme Court ruled in the police department's favor. It turns out it's literally not their job to protect people. So to the internet badasses who are about to comment on this video and claim they totally nailed the takedown, you should make a note of a few things. First, my insurance had me in and out of the hospital in 2 days. And the hospital didn't give me any AIDS or hepatitis tests after I'd been stabbed with a knife that had stabbed other people. Apparently that's not medically necessary. Second, if you ever get the chance to confront a dangerous armed madman, don't trust in the police having your back. Don't expect to get the credit. And hope like hell there's another napkin man waiting in the wings to help you.
I think this video, I mean, this is the fucking reality, brah. I hate liberals, dude. I hate liberals. I fucking despise them, man. I fucking hate them. I fucking hate them. I don't know what to tell you. Oh boy. All right, chat. Let's have a piece of candy. This is totally ADHD. I'm sorry, but I want a piece of candy.
Dysphoria, which is a term that I use throughout the speech, not gender identity
You sound like a
disorder,
bozo, bro. And you get no pussy, and you can't even make your wife wet, bro. So what's good?
Okay, listen. He sounds like a bozo, it's true. But the reason why we say he can't get his wife wet is because he attacked Cardi B for her song, Wet Ass Pussy. And he claimed that if a woman gets a wet vagina, she has some sort of infection of her vagina. Can you imagine being a married man and saying something like that? That's based. All right, everybody, it's time for the new Channel 5 video. He's in fucking Ukraine. Now, there are 2 parts that are TOS, so I will be pulling the video off the screen as it becomes necessary. So, are you all aware of the big confidence and supply agreement between the NDP and Libs in Canada that is getting dental care and affordable housing? Fucking nice, man. Congrats. Canadians, that's what happens when you have a third party that's actually more left wing. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
I'm fine. I'm not at home. I came from Kiev. I really want to go home, but I think it won't be safe for my daughter, so we will stay somewhere here and just wait.
What do you miss most about home?
My ordinary life, you know, just to drink some coffee in my favorite cafe and to bring my daughter to the kindergarten, just normal stuff. It will never be the same as it was.
Lviv is the most western city in Ukraine.
Every time the siren is here, I just tell her that it's fireworks, so we need to hide because she's like 5 years old, and I don't want for her to have a trauma.
Just fireworks?
Yeah, just fireworks, loud fireworks.
Yeah.
We never know in what time Russia will...
So if there is an air raid siren, you should go in underground. Like, that's what they're for. Wandering around outside. Like, I know that they get it so often now that's kind of like normalcy. Because I guess there's only so many air raid sirens where nothing happens before you like just start ignoring it. But yeah, they're walking to the shelters. Maybe. Okay. Well, they're more chill. Mike Chaz, don't worry about sirens. Good point.
Will send missiles or rockets to our territory. Air attack could be launched on Lviv. So now we need to go to find the nearest shelter just to hide.
We're going to a shelter now in the press building. That was genuinely pretty fucking terrifying.
Each time it's really scary, especially at the night, then you want to try to chill and sleep.
It is a special time for me, for my city, for my country. Last month, 3 times Russia aggressor attack city Lviv.
Officials in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv say Russian missile strikes hit a fuel storage facility on the outskirts of the city.
We could see dark plumes of smoke rising into the sky.
Chad, for me, Putin equal Hitler. A Russian aggressor attack Ukrainian cities every day.
Global outrage grew today as more horrific revelations surfaced from Bucha, Ukraine.
I want to warn you that the images we are about to show you and even the descriptions of them are graphic, disturbing, but they are the devastating reality of Putin's war on the people of Ukraine. The town's mayor saying at least 20 innocent civilians were shot in the back of the head, and that several hundred civilians are buried in the once peaceful commuter town's mass grave.
Basically, a load of the Russian troops that are around, like Kiev, Oblast, the region on the front lines there, they've pulled back. For the first time, a lot of the Ukrainian troops have like properly moved in there to see like what's happened, and they're just finding like mass graves, over 400 probably civilians, you know, old people, young people. They're finding loads of images of people with their hands tied behind their back, dead in the street. It's like it's probably an execution, right? So it's looking like there was a massacre.
All world must isolate Russia. Next 50 years, Russia, it is Nazi country.
Хедшот. Українці, розстрілюємо Путіна. Не сором промахнутися. Сором не стрельнути. Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Героям слава! Сюди, оцей. Супер. 20% цього прибутку йде на фонд «Повертайся живим». Так, якщо маєте можливість, можете на фонд «Повертайся живим» скинути любу, бо тут нема праці. Можете опозоритись.
How did it feel to do that?
Трошки на душі стало легше. Я надію, кількість цих куль поросте в настоящі, і ми...
Anytime someone's like, that's like one of the oldest confidence scams is like putting a, just being like, yeah, this is a donation to blah, 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 blah. Like, is it? Maybe?
Ми її побачимо в мавзолеї або десь закопаною під бетоном. На даний момент ми займаємося гуманітарною допомогою. Якщо мене армія призве, звичайно, я готовий. Ми гуманітарно допомагаємо, там фонд часі «Повернись живим», також перераховуємо кошти.
I guess for, you know, a lot of people, they can't be on the front or whatever, but this is their way of donating, this is their way of helping. Everyone is doing something. It's really interesting to see. It's like a community effort, you know, across the whole country.
So it was my place where I usually walked after Russia invaded in Ukraine. This place closed for climbing, but it opened for taking refugees here. We are still helping them each day.
Ще хочеш?
Do you want some question for him?
Yeah, sure. What's your name?
Як тебе звати?
Київ.
Do you like to climb?
Покуси, потом уехай и сюда приехал.
What's your favorite animal?
Mason.
Mason? So you have a cat called Mason.
Is that Mason? 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 All right. Mason's a little bit camera shy. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Is that a Scottish fold trap?
Я хотел маме купить машину, когда вырасту.
He want to buy a car for his mother and to himself.
Взрыв будет, и я буду сам ехать.
Меня зовут Ольга. Мы приехали из города Бахмут Донецкой области. Мы с вечера собрались и уже до крайней точки Львов. Остаться в ближайшее время, а дальше посмотрим, будет видно как.
Would you prefer to return home or would you like to immigrate into a different country?
Хотелось бы вернуться домой. Естественно, мы скучаем по дому, как развернутся все эти события, и будет ли дома, будет ли куда возвращаться, и если действительно будут какие-то сложные ситуации в плане возврата домой. Какое-то время было спокойно в городе, потом какой-то день в центр города прилетело сразу несколько ракет. Мне стало страшно за ребенка, за себя, семью, и мы приняли решение выехать.
How do you explain what's going on to your son?
Когда это было далеко от нас, и комендантский час, и так далее, он видел в городе военных и военную технику. Он задавал вопросы, почему они здесь, не внедрялась в подробности, не вникала.
Do you like staying here?
Мне тут нравится, я тут только на канате таком, на матче бегал, прыгал.
Good in this situation.
Well, I'm glad you were able to bring Mason with you.
Обязательно в любом случае мы бы не оставили его дома без присмотра. Он полноценный член нашей семьи.
Under no circumstances would we leave Mason behind. Now that's resistance right there. He's so cute. Oh my god, dude. Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
Out of the more than 4 million people who fled Ukraine, over 2.3 million are now in Poland.
14. Yeah, 14. I came off Kryvyi Rih, it's the center of Ukraine. My little brother and my aunt came to Peremyshel with me. And I like very scared because my dad is in Kryvyi Rih. Yeah, it's scary situation. Very scary situation.
What do you miss most about home?
My friends, my 4 best friends.
No, it's a Scottish fold, dude. It's a Scottish fold. His ears were folded over. You're just off. This is what it is. Scottish fold. See the ears? We're gonna have we have a Mason debate. All right, where are we at? We're at 7:30. Where the hell's Mason? Mason, Scottish fold. See the ears? See Mason. See how they're like folded over? This is a British short hair. They have their ears up. Anyway.
Hungary, in Slovenia, in Ireland, and I haven't connected with them.
If you had to pick one friend that you wished you were with right now, which friend would it be?
I think like Dima. In my school, he sit back for me. He's quite funny and he's like, he can smile me, all of them. I want to hear his jokes of teachers and like, I want to usual life.
Damn, dude.
Декілька днів тому приходило по 6 потягів, і можна легко порахувати, що кожний потяг вміщував по 2-3 тисячі осіб.
What do you think is the biggest challenge refugees face whenever they get from Ukraine to Poland?
Така, що люди приїжджають в чужу державу і не можуть зорієнтуватися. Кожен боїться за своє життя, за своїх дітей. Дуже дивно те, що, наприклад, українці в Російській Федерації живе коло більше 5 мільйонів осіб всебічного освітлення цієї війни, і тому рахують, що російська армія робить правильно.
In Russia, Vladimir Putin's approval rating is soaring despite his disastrous invasion of Ukraine.
It's now above 80%.
Киев никто не бомбит, я этому не верю.
Путин такого не мог сделать. Напасть на Украину, тем более.
Every day, Russian state television accuses the West of fake news over Ukraine.
Это Зеленский все делает. Американцы.
Я за Путина. Я хочу вам показать. Я за Путина. Я поняла. Даже не буду смотреть фотографии.
One of their claims is that the bodies in these photos lying on the ground, these apparently dead bodies, were placed there by Ukrainian radicals, as they're called, or Nazis.
So I think I've seen this before. What is this flyer right here?
So AFOB Azov Battalion is neo-fascist battalion here in Ukraine. They've been going since the start of the revolution, so 2014.
The group was known to have ties to neo-Nazi movements, and its leader was even quoted once as saying Ukraine's purpose was to, quote, lead the white races of the world.
To Russian President Vladimir Putin, their far-right politics a justification to claim that Ukraine needs to be denazified.
Not to say that they're not there. They're fighting right now in Mariupol. You know, they've been basically defending that city along with the Ukraine Marines, but they make out like that's everybody and everybody believes in it, sort of thing. There's a real problem where people either like just deny it exists or they emphasize on it too much, and really they don't have much influence like politically. So when Russia was saying they're a Nazi junta, it's like, well, then they're the worst one that ever happened, because Zelensky, who was a Jew, some of his family died in the Holocaust under the Nazis, he got 73% of the vote in a country of 44 million. I think what you have to do is look at Russia. So Russia has a much more serious.
I mean, that was with no votes from the separatist regions, right? So 73% minus the people that rebelled.
Nazi problem. And there's a lot of evidence that they're connected to the FSB, Russian internal intelligence services. So they have a problem. Siren.
Yeah. Should we go to a shelter or something?
Yeah, we should probably go to a shelter, yeah. if we want to get a look at the other side of things that isn't reported as much, we could go and talk to the anarchists. They're doing aid. They're taking stuff all over Ukraine. They're not making a big noise about it, but they're doing it not just to anarchist groups, to any soldiers that need it, you know. So that's another part of this thing.
Before the war, I worked as a tour guide in a history museum. 10-20 kilometers from Bucha, Irpin areas, I used to cycle in that areas a lot. It's fucked up. If Russians occupy it, they will kill off every politically active person, no matter of his political views. The side which really needs denazifying right now, in my opinion, is Russia.
Why are, Nazis fighting with leftists on the front lines?
If the fight is lost, there will be no one left. No right wing, left wing, it will be eradicated.
Ну і власне в них достатньо ресурсів для того, щоб розповсюджувати цю фейкову інформацію на весь світ, і в тому числі є багато західних медіа, які прослуховують.
I don't know about that. There's not a lot of Russian propaganda in the West. I mean, 2 Twitch streamers just got banned because they tried to say the Russian line.
The Kremlin views Tucker Carlson's commentary as, quote, essential in its wartime messaging strategy. That is according to a leaked 12-page memo from a Russian government agency to the Russian media.
What is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Did he manufacture a worldwide pandemic that wrecked my business and kept me indoors for 2 years? Is he trying to snuff out Christianity? Does he eat dogs? Is he making fentanyl? These are fair questions, and the answer to all of them is no. Vladimir Putin didn't do any of that.
Putin is doing the right thing. He's taken out the Syrian mafia.
It's not an invasion. They can easily fake a war.
Ну це просто весело, це типу як будь-які інші фейк-ньюс.
So what are the most important items that you need right now?
Helmets and bulletproof vests, certain kinds of medicine.
Потім речі, які дозволяють там не замерзнути, типу спальників, одягу, карематів і так далі. Теж те, що може знадобитися як цивільним, так і на фронті.
OperationSolidarity.org. Nice, man. It's just always disgusting to see what war does. We should always think about this whenever we in our countries engage in wars, that there's very few people that are going on their way to Yemen, right? So we, without a doubt, fully condemn Putin. We should fully condemn Putin. And there's no tolerance for that. Putin is an evil dictator, and his aggression is unjustifiable. Does Ukraine have serious problems? Yes. Yes. But does that justify this invasion? Absolutely fucking not. And the thing that's really amazing to me is that this decision was a catastrophic blunder. Look at the news today. Look at the news today. Sweden and Finland are about to join NATO. If you actually look at a map of Europe, Finland and Sweden are 2 of the most significant countries that are non-NATO members. So who isn't in NATO? Ukraine, Serbia. Is this Kosovo? I think this is Kosovo. Austria, Switzerland, Ireland, Moldova, Finland, and Sweden. And now, because of this invasion of Ukraine, this is pushing both Finland and Sweden, who operated as West-leaning neutral nations during the Cold War, firmly into the NATO's camp. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has rejuvenated the justification for NATO for another 50 fucking years. Does it really need to be said that Russia's invasion is unjustifiable means that no justification to support the conclusion that the invasion is good? Exactly. There's no justification that exists with the world today for what Russia is doing to them. It's just that simple. I opposed NATO expansion. I sought a peaceful resolution. But when that goes out the fucking window and Russia invades. Dylan Pickle says, I think this is one of the best episodes Andrew and Co have done. They basically put their lives on the line and gave us many different unique perspectives of what's going on the ground there. Having Popular Front, anarchists, the Lviv mayor, and everyday Ukrainians just shows how much Channel 5 can tell an emotive story in so many different ways. Truly one of the best anthropologists and ethnographers of our time. I hope Mason stays safe. In the New Deal, Channel 5 would be funded by Biden. Channel 5 would have been funded by FDR if it was the New Deal. That's what the New Deal funded hundreds of guys like Andrew to go around and have conversations. In fact, if you want to understand how great the New Deal was, they went around and they recorded what was known as slave narratives. The WPA and the slave narrative collection. The advent of the New Deal marked a new phase for it was under New Deal employment programs for jobless white-collar workers that narrative collecting reaches its zenith. With the Federal Emergency Relief Agency, White Collar Project, and subsequently in its successor organization, the Work Progress Administration, both agencies were created in response to the massive unemployment of the Great Depression. The spirit of innovation and experimentation that was the hallmark of the New Deal was nowhere more clearly manifested than the establishment of the Federal Project Number 1, better known as the Federal Arts Project. That included art, music, theater, and writers projects designed to assist unemployed writers, artists, musicians, and actors by providing them with employment that they could use their occupational skills. The government embarked upon an unprecedented program of support for artistic and cultural endeavors. One of the things they did is they did a unique opportunity to pursue folklore research on a national basis. It was most fully developed in the highly original and widely acclaimed These Are Our Lives, a series of life histories of broad and diverse but undistinguished group of residents in the southeastern United States. The slave narrative collection was thus a natural and logical extension of the Writers Project goal of letting ordinary people tell their own life stories. We had a totally different idea of what the government should and could do. People have no clue what the New Deal was like. They really don't. They hear New Deal and they kind of vaguely understand that it was good. Apparently, there's some outrage by leftists about a DSA published opinion that DSA should support Operation Solidarity because they also purchase military equipment. My personal opinion is that you can criticize that, but I don't see a problem with it personally. You can go to freedomonthemove.org and transcribe narratives of self-liberated slaves, crowdsourced project led by Cornell. Yeah, imagine if that was funded by the federal government instead of crowdsourced. All right, chat. Be right back.
This video was brought to you by CuriosityStream. Sign up now and you'll get our streaming service Nebula absolutely free, where you can get exclusive TLDR videos and an extended version of our new show, The Daily Briefing. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, now in its 7th week, has clearly upended the European security order, with Putin pushing many countries to re-evaluate their military and defensive positions. Germany, for instance, has hailed a new era of defense spending, bringing Europe's biggest and richest nation up to the 2% NATO defense spending targets. And speaking of NATO, yesterday Sweden and Finland's prime ministers held a joint press conference to discuss the potential of them joining the club, potentially as early as June. So in this video we're going to look at those new reports about Finland and Sweden's accession to NATO, and how Putin might have inadvertently forced his Nordic neighbours into the alliance that he seemed to hate the most. First things first, why aren't Sweden and Finland in NATO already? Well, a month or so ago, we actually put out a full video explaining that, but the crux of the matter is that there simply wasn't any need for them to sign up. Both Finland and Sweden were doggedly neutral countries, and for most of the 20th century, there were no active threats posed to their territorial integrity, and neutrality came with its advantages. It allowed both countries to curry favour with the West and the East. Finland, for example, has previously bought arms from both Russia and the West, and was an observer member in both the European Economic Community and the Soviet-led Comecon bloc in the 1970s. This, of course, all changed since Russia invaded
LDR
Ukraine.
Is not that good.
Suddenly,
True.
there was an
That's why I'm here.
threat, not only to Finland and Sweden, but also to much of Eastern Europe. So this entire calculation that had led them to this neutrality no longer added up. The world order that had allowed neutrality had suddenly changed. In the eyes of much of the
Okay, first of all, it wasn't that the New World Order had allowed neutrality. It was that neutrality was objectively the right decision to de-escalate. Yeah, Dennis, I saw that. You should talk to Sushi Mom about that movie. In fact, their neutral stance is part of why Finland and Sweden are the great nations that they are today for their own citizens. But Russia's aggression has in fact changed the calculation for a lot of people, and it's a major concern.
West, including both Finland and Sweden, Russia now poses a significant threat to their territorial integrity and the territorial integrity of their allies. In practical terms, this has already led to a significant strengthening of relations between Western nations. As we've seen across various sanction packages, the US, UK, Canada, and EU are moving in lockstep with one another, presenting a united front. And on the military side of things, NATO members have consistently recently reaffirmed their unwavering commitment to Article 5, which, in its simplest form, means an attack on one is considered to be an attack on all. So, in theory, Article 5 should act as a significant deterrent against invasion, because, well, even if you invade one of the smaller NATO countries, you have to fight all of NATO. And it appears that this is a commitment that both Finland and Sweden want in on, and fast. According to NATO officials talking to The Times, Russia has made a massive strategic blunder, and both countries are apparently poised to join as soon as early June. And this timeline does seem possible, given that both Sweden and Finland are carrying out security policy reviews at the moment, which are scheduled to conclude at the end of May. If these security policy reviews recommend NATO accession, then we could easily see their applications submitted by this proposed June deadline. Swedish and Finnish politicians also seem remarkably open to the idea. Magdalena Andersson, the Swedish Prime Minister, has stated that she does not want to exclude NATO membership in any way, a significant U-turn from just early March, when Andersson said that Sweden joining NATO would further destabilize Eastern Europe and increase tension. Jimmy Åkesson, leader of Sweden's second largest opposition party, the Sweden Democrats, has...
And he's far right, by the way. The Sweden Democrats are far right.
Swedish and Finnish politicians also seem remarkably open to the idea. Magdalena Andersson...
TLD, or does he mention that? The Swedish Democrats are far right? I love liberal news channels.
Swedish Prime Minister has stated that she does not want to exclude NATO membership in any way, a significant U-turn from just early March, when Andersson said that Sweden joining NATO would further destabilize Eastern Europe and increase tension.
So do you see how pathetically stupid Putin is? What a fucking moron. What a fucking moron.
Jimmy Åkesson, leader of Sweden's second largest opposition party, the Sweden Democrats, has also said that he wants his party to support NATO accession, and if he's successful in convincing his party, then there would be a parliamentary majority in Sweden for joining the alliance. When it comes to Finland, their Prime Minister has also stressed that it's time for Finland to seriously reconsider its stance on NATO, saying that Russia is not the neighbor we thought it was, and the decision to join ought to be taken.
I know. I love how self-aware that this channel is. It's like, listen, our viewers are idiots.
The Prime Minister has
just put a "Hello, my name is" sticker on her chest. Like, you can't expect any of our dumbass viewers to know the name of the Prime Minister of Finland. So we're just gonna stick a sticker right there.
Also stressed that it's time for Finland to seriously reconsider its stance on NATO, saying that Russia is not the neighbor we thought it was, and the decision to join ought to be taken thoroughly but quickly. In fact, things went even further only yesterday when the two leaders met in Stockholm to hold a meeting
this is the
conference
really
on
bad
the issue of NATO membership. During the press conference, Finland's Prime Minister said that the country would decide in a matter of weeks, sticking to the suggested timeline we mentioned earlier, while the Swedish Prime Minister said that she was conducting a very serious analysis and expected to make a decision and potentially submit an application before the next NATO summit in June. This change in tone by politicians mirrors a similar change amongst the public in both countries. Prior to the invasion, the majority of Finns and a plurality of Swedes were opposed to NATO membership. In both countries, though, public sentiment has done a sharp 180. In late February, polling found that, for the first time ever, a majority of Finns wanted to join NATO, and the latest poll from March 30th found that 61% of Finns were in favour of joining, with just 16% opposed. And it's a similar story for Sweden. Polling from early March found that 51% of Swedes now support joining NATO, with just 27% against. Interestingly, a more recent poll found that if Finland joins, support in Sweden rises to 61%, with 17% against.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Are two provinces in eastern Ukraine worth NATO expanding with Finland and Sweden and devastation of the Russian economy and the world economy, countless deaths, unbelievable stupidity to the point of it's almost unbelievable. I just got done doing a full praxis on a U.S. vet who was defending imperialism and capitalism. He changed his mind. I've gone and listened to Matt Chapo and Matt Christmas now. He said he's had a paradigm shift. I'm shaking after convo. I'm so excited. Wow, good job, Wide Scope. I mean, obviously you should watch me, but, you know, okay. Thanks for recommending someone else. Cool.
regardless of whether the countries actually join or not. It's worth noting that NATO itself is planning to adjust to the new threat posed by Russia. Before the invasion, NATO just deployed a small tripwire force on its eastern border, incapable of defending against a full-scale invasion. However, according to Jens Stoltenberg, the current NATO Secretary General, the alliance is now planning to deploy...
Wait, what? This is batshit. And here come the war profiteers. NATO's Baltic tripwire forces won't stop Russia. They're being stopped by Ukraine! You think Russia could challenge NATO? Are you kidding me? Get out of here.
A small tripwire force on its eastern border, incapable of defending against a full-scale invasion.
This is so cynical. Our PM heads the weakest government in memory. They basically have to run the opposition's budget. There's an election in September. The idiots seem to want to curry favor with the conservatives and libs that will never vote for her anyway. By ripping apart her 200 years old and proud neutrality, it angers me to no end, and NATO membership subjugation to a U.S. hegemon will never be accepted. I'm really bummed for you guys. I really am. I feel bad, man. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say. I know that, you know, Sweden has a really proud history of opposing U.S. criminal fucking behavior in Vietnam and the Iraq War, the overt aggression of the United States, but, you know, Russia's invasion right on your guys' doorstep, like, creating this environment, man.
However, according to Jens Stoltenberg, the current NATO Secretary General, the alliance is now planning to deploy a permanent full-scale military force on NATO's external borders, capable of defending against an army. And this could change the calculus for all parties involved. Were Finland and Sweden to join, and the permanent force deployed along their border with Russia too, it might provoke Russian retaliation. This is probably a genuine concern too. When the two countries softened their position on NATO membership more generally, Russia was quick to announce that there would be serious military and political consequences, including retaliatory measures, and that's only if they join, let alone if NATO forces were to build up on their border. Putin's spokesperson repeated that threat when talking to Sky News just last week, reiterating that if either country joined the alliance, it will be considered a threat for the whole architecture of security, requiring Russia to, quote, take additional measures to rebalance the situation. That being said, the Russian army clearly doesn't have the capacity to fight against both NATO and Ukraine. And NATO and its members appear to be strongly on board with having both Sweden and Finland join the club. Sweden and Finland have actually been invited to several NATO meetings surrounding Russia's invasion. And European diplomats have highlighted how Sweden and Finland would both, in their own right, significantly beef up NATO's capabilities on the intelligence and air forces front. One European alliance diplomat said that Sweden and Finland will be real feathers in NATO's cap as net contributors. They are real players. But if you want to be updated on Russia, Ukraine, and NATO accession as it plays out, then you should subscribe to the Daily Briefing, our show where we break down the 5-story and announced documentaries and exclusive content.
Jesus Christ, this thing is a 10-minute video and it's got 3 minutes of ads in it.
Finland and Sweden edging closer. In a press conference with the Swedish leader earlier today, Finland's Prime Minister discussed the possibility of applying for membership.
We need to have consensus.
There will be no foreign troops stationed in Finland. There's no support for it whatsoever. Well, once you join NATO Central Command, you'll start to lose the kind of sovereignty that you have become accustomed to.
Have a view on the future, and we are using this time to analyze and also building common views on the future when it comes to security. I won't give any kind of timetable when we will make our decisions, but I think it will happen quite fast, within weeks, not within months.
Nick Robertson joins us now. Nick, long-term partners, if not members of NATO, Finland and Sweden, perhaps deciding now that they no longer have the luxury of remaining on the fence where this body is
I think Japan likes the Okinawa base.
concerned. How close do you think they are to that consensus that the Prime Minister was talking about there?
Yeah, I think Finland's very close and Sweden's probably not far behind. And why do I say that? Speaking to a Finnish diplomat earlier this year before Russia's invasion, one of the big takeaways for Finland was just what NATO membership means and what Russia's aggression means. And, you know, to Finland sitting outside of NATO, although doing many military exercises, partnering with NATO in the past, sitting outside, they realized what Ukraine was going through was a scenario where a nation was being attacked by an aggressive neighbor, Russia, but that nation would have to face it alone, even if it aspired to be part of NATO, even if it shared values with other NATO countries, because it's only Article 5 that makes you safe. And we heard from both the Finnish Prime Minister today and the Swedish Prime Minister saying Russia's invasion of Ukraine changed everything. So if you go back to earlier this year, when perhaps only a quarter of the population in Finland would have supported membership of NATO, the sense is that that's really changed. And what we've heard from the Finnish Prime Minister today is that after Easter, they'll give this 51-page discussion document to the Finnish Parliament. They will expect within weeks to have it concluded. And there's really an expectation here in Brussels and at NATO headquarters that by the time we get to the end of June and NATO's leadership summit, Finland will be asking, and potentially Sweden as well, will be asking to become a full member of NATO. And that is something that's expected to go through fairly easily and fairly swiftly. Everyone here has the sense that that's in motion. What does it mean for NATO? Significantly, it's going to double its land border with Russia when Finland joins. Finland has almost an 800-mile border with Russia. So there are significant consequences here.
Yes, consequences for NATO and for Russia. To your point, Nick, I feel if the Ukraine crisis can't convince you, perhaps nothing will. President Zelensky and the Ukrainian government unwilling to host the German president in Kyiv. A mistake.
If Putin is mad as people claim, what's to stop him attacking these countries? He doesn't have the capability because the country is poor. He doesn't have the ability to attack them.
Whatever the concerns about his relationship with Russia, Ukraine continues and will continue to need Germany.
Yeah, President Zelensky and Ukraine's leadership have been really
What's
tough.
the difference between attacking Ukraine and Finland? Ukraine seems way stronger. No shot. Finland's military is way more modernized than Ukraine. Ukraine has gotten tens of billions of dollars of aid. So the fact that Russia was unable to overcome Ukrainian military, there's no shot. No shot. I mean, the idea they invade Finland would be baffling. Even if he doesn't attack, if he declares war against them, does that prevent them from getting into NATO? I mean, that seems like they would probably not. I don't know what the fuck would happen then, man. This is hell world, man. This is the worst of all possible worlds. NATO expansion, it will be disastrous for the third world. Yeah. Yeah.
On people and countries that they feel are causing problems or making life difficult for them. We've heard them call in the early stages out President Biden, call out Viktor Orban, the Hungarian Prime Minister. And here this feels and looks like a strange one. Walter Steinmeier, the German president, expected to accompany the Polish, Lithuanian, Estonian, Latvian presidents who went to who've gone to Kyiv today. Steinmeier was the foreign minister in Germany, and there seems to be a perception in Kyiv that as foreign minister in Germany previously, he was the one that was sort of responsible for forging closer ties with Russia, Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. But of course, Germany itself has done so much in recent days. It's the first country to take wounded Ukrainian civilians by plane and fly them to Germany for treatment. It's been treating wounded Ukrainian soldiers in Germany over past weeks. It was slow to offer military assistance, but it's made a massive and fundamental change in its approach to its own security, massively increasing its defense
Wait a minute,
spending.
what?
And shifting from a position of saying that it would only supply helmets to the Ukrainian forces, it's essentially signaled that the Czech Republic can provide M72
But this is not true. This story has been denied by the Ukraine. This is just denied by Ukraine, so the story doesn't have any legs. And so the expansion of NATO is happening, which is absolutely disastrous for the world. And that means there are less principled outside views on its behavior. This is going to empower the right wing in Finland and Sweden. There's going to be constant liberal attempts to apologize for and normalize the far right in Sweden. All right, Chad, I wanted to show you this. This is on cluster munitions. And it's funny because people are like, oh my God, use of cluster munitions is a war crime. And then it's like the US has cluster munitions and is using them and is currently providing them to Saudi Arabia to use in Yemen. Oops. It's a war crime to even own these. The U.S. has them. Okay, moving on.
Russian attack hit the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv in a residential area.
4 people died collecting water from a water point in that neighborhood, and many more were injured. We had lots of videos from social media that were documenting the attack from multiple angles. Some videos taken from afar, from high-rise buildings.
Milena Marin and her team at Amnesty International gather evidence like this.
Oh, we believe Amnesty International now when they say Israel is an apartheid state. Amnesty International, they're tankies, okay? But when they're like, hey, Russia is doing cluster bombings, oh, now we believe them.
Looking for signs of war crimes.
We want to see, was that in any ways a legitimate strike?
And among the videos and photos they found showing the destruction of civilian property, one particular piece of evidence caught their attention. It's a remnant from a cluster bomb, a weapon so destructive to civilians that its use alone can constitute a war crime. So why do the world's most powerful militaries still use them?
Because they're good for anti-personnel. You drop it on soldiers
cluster
hiding in...
munition strikes involve rockets that contain dozens or even hundreds of smaller cluster bombs.
Their fucking cover.
This is the nose cone of a rocket from another attack in Kharkiv, and this is the tail. The image Milena analyzed is one of the smaller cluster bombs. When the rocket releases cluster bombs, they scatter over an area as large as several city blocks, causing widespread explosions. Like this dashcam video verified by Bellingcat, taken from another attack in Kharkiv. Each circle is one of the cluster bombs exploding. It's this imprecision that makes cluster bombs illegal under the rules of war in most cases. Those rules were created by a series of international treaties that span decades. They govern how wars should be fought. They prohibit things like intentionally targeting civilians, and they ban what's known as indiscriminate attacks.
Every state military has the obligation to use as precise weapons as possible to hit military targets and not civilian targets.
A precise attack on a military target like a base or weapons hangar is permissible under the law because it intentionally avoids civilian areas. In an area with both military and civilian structures, militaries have to be careful to only target non-civilian areas. Striking a populated, mainly residential area like the attack in Kharkiv is almost impossible to justify legally.
Yet Israel does it constantly! Odd that! It's okay when Israel does it!
Especially if you are using cluster munitions. They are extremely bad at targeting, and releasing them anywhere near civilians results in indiscriminate damage. Of the roughly 23,000 documented cluster munition casualties since the 1960s, about 94% have been civilians.
Who killed
Some of
them?
that is because of the high failure rate
All
of
right,
the...
so of the 60,000... Oh, this is interesting. Of the cluster bomb, 23,000 documented cluster munition deaths, who killed them? Who did it? What's the breakdown? Let's get that breakdown by country. Come on, man. Who did it?
1960s, about 94% have been civilians. Some of that is because of the high failure rate of the smaller bombs. Up to 30% of them don't...
The U.S. press release in 1945, the United States has detonated a powerful new weapon on Hiroshima, a military target.
Explode on impact, so they remain on the ground, posing a risk indefinitely. A vast majority of cluster munition casualties, 80%, are from those lingering remnants as opposed to the initial strike.
These weapons sit for decades and decades and are just as deadly and capable when a farmer hits them with a plow in 1970 or in 2070. They're still going to kill and injure.
The U.S. dropped millions of cluster bombs in Southeast Asia in the 60s and 70s during the Vietnam War. Those same bombs still kill and injure hundreds of people to this day, including in March of this year.
Wait, hundreds of civilians are killed each year up to this year? Whoops.
Killed by a U.S. bomb he encountered while making a fire to cook. These small metallic remnants are often brightly colored, which is why children are attracted to them. In Kosovo, for example, after the Yugoslav wars, 62.5% of casualties from cluster bombs were boys under the age of 18. When Malena's team at Amnesty International's Crisis Evidence Lab got reports of the February 28th attack, reports of cluster bombs were just one element they began verifying.
My team is cataloging most of the videos that are coming from Ukraine, focusing on those that can qualify as human rights violations under definitions of war crimes, and it's illegal to target civilians or to use indiscriminate weapons. We do a lot of research to see whether there's, weapons, hangars, or anything that could justify an attack.
Google Earth imagery of the area captured before the war only appears to show civilian structures, high-rise apartment buildings, a hotel, an auto parts store, and a gondola station. The man who took the cluster bomb photo told me he heard a mistaken military target may have been this recreational shooting range.
So what we've done was to build a 3D model of that neighborhood and overlay all the videos and imagery we found onto that 3D model to really understand the footprint of the attack. We did that because we thought that cluster munitions were used.
The man who took the bomb photo lives here. He found the bomb a few meters from this parking lot where his car was parked. The photo got forwarded to Amnesty International to analyze. The manufacture date was from 2019, and Malena's team determined it was a Russian-made 9N235 cluster munition, shot from a 300mm Smerch rocket system like this. All of this evidence showed that the attack focused on civilians, nowhere near a military target using an indiscriminate weapon, a potential war crime.
And everything we do is with the purpose of justice and accountability. Really conclusive evidence sometimes tends to come later on.
The rule of war banning indiscriminate attacks was created in 1977, but it didn't stop countries from using cluster munitions in civilian-populated war zones, like the Soviets in Afghanistan, NATO forces in Kosovo and Yugoslavia.
Wait a minute! In Europe? We haven't seen a war in Europe like this since World War II, except that we did it. We used those illegal cluster munitions. Go ahead and forget about that. This is what you need to know. This is all you need to know about what we did, okay? Okay, this is all you need to know. Everybody.
Thank you, USA. You are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper, you are the legend. Thank you, USA, you are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper, you are the legend. Thank you, USA, stopping genocide, helping small Kosovo, stopping their own fight. In 1999, helping in Kosovo, two men shaking hands, Clinton and Rugova. Thank you, USA, you are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper, you are the legend. Thank you, USA, you are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper, you are the legend. That we do, the way we thank you, this song that we sing, memories will bring. In so many countries, you are keeping peace. You are the lifesaver, you are pain release. Thank you, USA, you are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper.
The CIA is doing it, chat.
Thank you, USA. You are my best friend.
Wow, is this the singer meeting like the American general? I
You
never noticed that part. is actually a CIA video. Holy shit.
You are the peacekeeper. You are the legend. Thank you, USA. You are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper. You are the legend. Thank you, USA. You are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper. You are the legend. Thank you, USA. You are my best friend. You are the peacekeeper. You are the legend.
Yeah, the Kosovo, the genocide of the Balkans, the fall of Yugoslavia. And, you know, Yugoslavia was an amazing multinational republic that was a socialist country, not aligned with Stalin, who had been one of the most effective resistors of the Nazis in World War II. And when the Cold War ended and shock doctrine went into Yugoslavia, it fragmented on these nationalistic lines, these ethnic lines, and there was a huge conflict whose flames were fanned by right-wing fascists, and it led to a conflict that was just indiscriminate genocide among these different ethnic and religious groups. Pretty fucking disgusting what we did to Yugoslavia. Eventually, the United States intervened, but
NATO forces in Kosovo and Yugoslavia, Israel in Lebanon, and by the U.S. in Iraq and Afghanistan. The civilian impact of these bombings motivated a cluster munitions treaty in 2008, which sought to ban the weapon outright, and it included obligations to assist victims and clean up areas with undetonated remnants. It was signed by over 100 countries.
Hey! Who didn't sign this cluster bomb treaty ban? I don't see Poland there. I don't see Ukraine there. Did Hungary sign? I don't think Hungary signed. Huh. Oh, US, yeah, obviously.
But notably,
Israel didn't sign. That's Syria, chat.
Signed by over 100 countries.
And that's south. Is that the West Bank? Look, I'm trying to figure out what that smudge is. Is that the West Bank? Like, it's Lebanon? Yeah, okay. Okay, good. Jordan? Literally, it's just a smudge. We can't really see the lines.
100 countries, but notably not by the worst offenders.
We don't have countries such as the US, China, and Russia that are major producers and have been users, US and Russia, of cluster munitions.
That means that today, these non-signatory countries still may be producing cluster munitions, and these countries still likely stockpile them for different reasons.
The U.S. maintains its arsenal because in some theoretical conflict where there's a number of tanks and people outside of those tanks, if you used cluster munitions on that, you could both damage the vehicles and injure the people outside of them. Having a weapon that does that is useful in a military arsenal. However, there's other weapons that do that don't produce thousands of duds that can affect civilians for a long time afterwards.
I asked Brian to compare cluster munitions to another type of banned warfare, chemical weapons.
The ethical and legal arguments are actually very similar, which is the inherently indiscriminate nature of using either weapons.
Like cluster munitions, the use of chemical weapons violates a ban on indiscriminate attacks, among other rules of war. It's impossible to use a gaseous weapon in a precise way. After their use in World War I, a Geneva Protocol banned the use of chemical weapons. And in 1993, a chemical weapons treaty made that ban more explicit by also prohibiting the development, production, and stockpiling of the weapon. Nearly every country signed on to it. But that level of commitment just hasn't happened with cluster bombs, partly because chemical weapons have been explicitly banned and stigmatized for so long. Since the signing of the 2008 treaty, cluster munitions are still in use. This container and cluster bomb were used in the last known direct U.S. cluster munition strike in Yemen in 2009. The initial impact killed 41 civilians, including 23 children. Russia and the Syrian government have used cluster munitions in Syria, which is why Syria has had the highest rate of cluster munition casualties since their civil war began. and reports suggest Russia has used cluster bombs at least 24 times in Ukraine, a low estimate.
I interviewed a man who was wounded by a cluster munition. He still had the pieces because the surgeon took them out of his body and he kept them. One of the pellets that was stuck in his body was very distinctive as coming from a certain kind of Russian submunition. The mountain of evidence and the number of indiscriminate attacks is really becoming quite overwhelming. Not just one attack or two attacks or 10 or 100, but just continue.
I mean, we allow the hey, if you use tear gas, which is a chemical weapon, on civilians, that's okay if it's done by a police department. But if a military uses it on another military, that's a violation.
Continuously, any one of these attacks would be a crime all on their own.
Along with the international community, the U.S. has alleged war crimes in Ukraine, but they haven't acknowledged their own role in perpetuating the use of cluster munitions around the world. This type of hypocrisy shows how the rules of war are only as strong as the worst offenders allow them to be.
International justice and accountability is extremely challenging, and impunity is one of the reasons why these weapons keep getting used again and again and again.
A potential prosecution for war crimes is why human rights investigations are so important. But for investigators like Milena, a criminal trial is just the long game.
We need to show what's happening to people trapped between the two armies. And that hopefully will sustain the attention on Ukraine, will provide immediate support to victims, will provide support to those fleeing the country. While the legal proceedings will last years, those people have immediate needs.
I would like to see the United States sign those cluster munition ban, but you know, imagine that actually happening. We will probably take a look at that. God damn, dude. Every leftist in their right mind should be pro-EU and pro-NATO. Those statements are so fucking comically stupid as to make you never listen. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? I know I'm yelling, so people may... I'm sorry, I said, are you fucking kidding me loudly? Are you okay? Are you going to be able to handle it? NATO literally was founded with Nazi generals and has proceeded to literally assassinate leftists in Europe. Go take a look at Operation Gladio. Go take a look at the way these organizations and institutions work. They exist to destroy leftism. Do you not? I mean, you have to be blatantly, droolingly stupid to not understand this. NATO was set up against the Soviet Union, and NATO, because it was in a geopolitical struggle with the Soviet Union, saw itself's goal to stamp out leftism in any state that was within its purview, because it was considered a risk that a country, if it embraced leftism, might not want to be involved in wars against the Soviet Union. I mean, if you're going to have even the smallest materialist analysis, even the smallest brain with a single wrinkle, this is obvious. Adam Something is a joke. What a joke. He's accusing Mélenchon of being pro-Russia. That's right. Pathetic. He's Hungarian. I mean, what can you say? His country just elected a fascist again. And here he is trying to put the centrist that got fascism to grow in his country. He's now trying to push on all the rest of us. What a fucking clown. What a clown. Absolutely. Just total dipshittery. Total dipshittery.
French presidential elections,
let's talk about this.
48 million people are eligible to vote. With the first round of elections due on Sunday, 5 candidates are seen to be the main frontrunners.
Emmanuel Macron is looking for a second term. He has consistently polled the highest throughout the campaign.
Barely. When they say highest, he ended up getting 27% of the vote. Can you imagine being the president getting 27% of the vote? Fucking pathetic.
Holding his first major rally last weekend. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen is polling in second place to Macron. This is her third presidential run, and she has had a low-key campaign, toning down her usual hardline rhetoric on immigration in favor of focusing on household income and purchasing power. Many analysts say a defeat would put an end to her political career.
Le pouvoir d'achat, c'est la grande question du quotidien, et j'y apporte des réponses immédiates.
Far-left leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon is known as Mélenchon for his charismatic speeches and firebrand politics.
Nous sommes ceux qui parlent la langue universelle, celle de l'intérêt général humain.
Can you imagine being against this guy? Are you fucking kidding me?
Celle de l'intérêt général humain.
Former TV pundit Eric Zemmour has been convicted of hate speech 3 times in the past. His poll numbers were high at the start of his campaign, thanks to his anti-immigration and anti-Muslim views. However, his campaign has stumbled, with many blaming his uncompromising style.
Nettoyer les gens qui font tous ces trafics, les renvoyer d'où ils viennent, car pour la plupart ce sont des clandestins, qu'ils soient de quelle nationalité, quelque nationalité qu'ils soient.
Lastly, there is Valérie Pécresse from the traditional right-wing party, the Republicans. She has had a woeful campaign run so far and has been snubbed by former president and party member Nicolas Sarkozy.
The two frontrunners, widely expected to be Macron and Le Pen, will head to the second round of elections on April 24th. But this election campaign has been marked by a lack of interest among many from minorities and the youth, and the number of potential voters who will stay away is expected to reach a new record.
And to just show you the results, let's talk. We're going to talk about the French election because fuck these people. Honestly, I'm disgusted. There is something that you should always understand. It's a concept that we know, and this is another axiom of this stream. Liberals hate socialists more than fascists because liberals believe in the hierarchy of capitalism. They like that they will be able to rule over someone as a petty tyrant because they have more money. And fundamentally, every other value that they claim to have is secondary to that desire. They are not your friends. They are not, say it again, liberals are not your friends. They are conservatives, but with better optics. That's it. Here was the results of the election. Macron, 27.6%. Macron is a neoliberal centrist who helped destroy the Socialist Party of France. He was a banker, and his time in office has been one of increasing repression against immigrants, cuts and proposed cuts to the social welfare state of France, neoliberalization, and hostile attitude towards Africa and Southern Europe, trying to impose austerity on all of them. Absolute disaster president. And if it wasn't for the invasion of Ukraine, he probably would have lost. There should be a constitutional amendment that bars anybody who has ever worked in finance or banking from running for office or participating in politics. Or once you are elected to political office, you are never allowed, or any relative is allowed, to become a banker. In fact, I think banking should be treated like the undesirables. You literally shouldn't be able to own media. You shouldn't be able to, you basically should have a second-class citizenship if you're a banker. So Mélenchon ended up losing by less than 2% to Le Pen. Absolutely fucking disgusting. And by the way, chat, let's say you're a liberal. If Mélenchon wins, there's no chance the far right gets in. Wouldn't you want to make sure that he's bumped up above Le Pen? Nah, forget about that. France is becoming very multipolar in terms of politics. The fact there wasn't a coalescence around the left to form a coalition around Mélenchon is scary. Oh yeah, it's absolutely a disaster, man. It's a fucking disaster. Let's watch this thing. We should have watched this before the election, but I didn't get to it, unfortunately.
Fanning the flames of the far right in France. The election candidates who are doing it. The news channels that traded it. The regulators and politicians who have allowed it, and the media tycoon at the heart of it. You're watching a special edition of The Listening Post.
I think it should be an ignoble medium paying profession like it used to be before the neoliberalization of the 70s. Oh no, I mean everyone should. I mean people should be like if someone says they're a banker, you should be like, you fucking blood-soaked parasite. How do you sleep at night? They should be hated. Do you actually think it's likely Le Pen wins? I think Le Pen has a very good shot. I wouldn't vote in the second round. I would abstain. If I was in France, I would abstain. I don't think there's I literally, I think from a harm prevention perspective, there's no difference.
Looks like a done deal, a fait accompli. President Emmanuel Macron has been ahead in the polls throughout, and he looks destined to stay there. But elections are about more than just outcomes. And this one has laid bare the radicalization of French politics and the media outlets providing some of the news coverage. Roughly 1/3 of voters say they will back a candidate from the far right, either Marine Le Pen, who Macron defeated in 2017, or Eric Zemmour, a former journalist known for hate speech aimed at immigrants and Muslims.
I mean, Macron is basically the same as Le Pen, except he's got worse economic policies and he's slightly better at hiding his anti-immigrant bigotry. But his colonialism, neocolonialism in Africa is worse. He has anti-immigration and anti-Muslim rhetoric. He doesn't believe in liberal values like private conscience. He's passed regulations to ban Muslim headscarves. He's had a campaign that has taxed far to the right on immigration. He sucks. He wants to raise the French retirement age and cut benefits so that rich can get a tax cut. He's fucking terrible. Chelsea Manning can't enter Canada due to prior conviction, says immigration board. Considering that Miss Manning was convicted of an offense outside Canada that if committed in Canada would constitute an offense under the Acts of Parliament punishable by a term of imprisonment of at least 10 years.
Zemmour owes much of his prominence to a news channel owned by a media tycoon, Vincent Bolloré, whose influence increases with each news outlet that he takes over. Bolloré is one of the billionaires presiding over a media sector that is already overly concentrated and growing more. I mean,
this is the same story in every Western country. Is the fascists are building these media organs that are just blaring propaganda constantly, but it's privately held, so liberals will never say anything about it because how could you ever question the market? And the thing is, these media things are not succeeding in the market. They're being subsidized. They're being subsidized to do population control so they can steal money from the government, not pay their taxes. They're not succeeding in a marketplace. They're propaganda organs to do politics with
the apparent blessing of the government. Later in this program, two reporters at more independent outlets on covering the rise of the political right. But first, the bigger picture. The French media landscape, the structural flaws, and societal dangers in a country that's about to go to the polls.
Gross.
Job one for journalists everywhere is to reflect reality. Anyone watching the French election campaign and the coverage of it would conclude that foremost in the minds of voters are issues such as immigration, crime, and the future of secularism in this traditionally Christian country. Au contraire.
The election campaign has been marked by an obsession with the immigration of Muslims. And then polls began to appear on the real subjects French people are interested in. What a surprise. Number one, purchasing power. Number two, the environment. Immigration came much later, but the anti-Islam obsession has reached new heights. There's a kind of media bubble which has formed completely outside of reality.
One of the most important issues today is climate change. In 30 or 40 years, large areas of our planet will be uninhabitable. And what do they talk about during the election? They talk about using French first names for French children. That's what they're talking about.
Il parle de ça. French voters have long had a flirtation with the far right. In the 1980s, Jean-Marie Le Pen formed the National Front. The party's popularity peaked in 2017, when Le Pen's daughter, Marine, made it to the second round of the presidential election before losing to Emmanuel Macron. This time around, Le Pen and Macron are up against a wild-card challenger from the right, Eric Zemmour, as well as the influence of media tycoon Vincent Bolloré. Born in France, of Algerian Jewish descent, Zemmour is a journalist and author turned politician whose anti-immigration, anti-Muslim views have earned him multiple convictions for hate speech.
L'islam est tout à fait aux antipodes de la France.
Despite or because of that, Bolloré furnished Zemmour with a platform on CNews,
En Afrique du Sud.
France's second most watched news channel. CNews' studios are where the seeds of Zemmour's presidential campaign were sown.
C'est qu'il y a aujourd'hui des places fortes islamiques en banlieue, en Seine-Saint-Denis, à Marseille, partout ailleurs en France. On n'est plus en France.
Au début, la chaîne a dit non.
Initially, the channel said, no, the host of the program is Christine Kelly. Zemmour is just a guest. In reality, the point was to give a huge space to Zemmour, and therefore, very quickly, it was just him.
Vous avez une population qui est française, blanche, chrétienne, et à la place, 40 ans plus tard, vous avez une population qui est maghrébine, africaine, pour la plupart musulmane. Si vous voulez, ça s'appelle un remplacement.
On a une chaîne qui a pignon sur rue.
We have a well-established 24-hour news channel, which gave a launching pad for the candidacy of Éric Zemmour.
Vulgarisation de la parole raciste qui habite.
So yes, there's a vulgarization of racist speech which is now normalized and is on people's minds. In that sense, a line has effectively been crossed.
Là où on voit qu'effectivement un cap a été franchi.
Bon, alors je vous disais que je ne suis pas le juge de paix.
I'm not the judge of CNews, nor am I Éric Zemmour's prosecutor, but his influence predates CNews.
C'est un polémiste qui prend des positions.
He is a polemicist who has been exerting significant influence for at least 15 years. I don't share his ideas, but he knows how to create interest and discussion. The best proof is that on social networks, he is carving out an infinitely more important place, proportionally, than, for example, on CNews.
Par exemple, ça n'est le cas sur CNews.
Bolloré's goals are also political. There was a very good investigation in the newspaper Le Monde that proved that Bolloré and Zemmour were speaking on the phone every day and saw each other very frequently. So there you have it. He helped shape and propel Zemmour as a candidate.
Propulser le candidat Zemmour.
Vincent Bolloré is a 70-year-old industrialist who came late to the media
And this is the standard shit. 70-year industrialist who came late to the media game. Oh, what do you think happened? You think he suddenly became passionate about the media in his 70s? No, he was like, oh, wait, it's working really well in America. It's working really well in the UK. It's working really well in the English-speaking world to promote far-right ideology, to own media and subsidize it. What a fucking surprise.
Political agenda. His company, the Bolloré Group, made its money by shipping freight, trading in West
Dr.
Africa,
Fubar.
and manufacturing paper products, from cigarette papers to Bibles. Bolloré got into the news business in the mid-2000s, upping his investment in 2012 when he took over Vivendi, a multimedia company. Vivendi remains the centerpiece in a portfolio that now spans the worlds of television, radio, magazines, and books. He's worth an estimated 8 billion euros, and compared to other media moguls here in France, on everything from editorial output to satirical programming, Bolloré is very hands-on.
Vincent Bolloré est un chef d'entreprise.
Vincent Bolloré is a right-wing entrepreneur from Brittany. He wants to defend Christian civilization, pointing the finger at Muslims.
Defend Christian civilization, pointing the finger at Muslims. It's working equals wealth is being concentrated in the hands of the right people. I mean, we're fucked. America's poisonous influence is just so damaging, man.
He's in the process of taking control of almost half of French media and most of our publishing houses. And he is very authoritarian. He will force journalists to follow his line.
Suivre sa ligne quand il a pris le contrôle de Canal+.
See, that's fine because he's not. See, that's good because that's a free press, chat. A free press is one where the billionaire tells you what to do on behalf of himself. No, not a government-funded state media. No, that's horrible. That's authoritarian. It's good when the billionaires do it. Christian civilization is a euphemism for white. No shit.
Troll Canal Plus.
I got massively triggered.
The satirical program Le Guignol de l'Info. He censored an investigative program on Canal Plus because it attacked his business partners with 3 television channels, a radio station, and now 2 magazines which are extremely influential. He has the power to determine the political agenda and the media agenda for the French election.
In the run-up to the vote, Bolloré has been adding to his media portfolio.
Hey, Macron, where are you at? Oh, he can't interfere because that would be touching the precious market. Oh, I honest to God, man, oh boy. Woo. Oh my lord. You know what's the worst part? I'm thinking about this pathetic fucking loser, Adam something, and all the people who like him. They're so caught up in their, I've got to defend NATO, I've got to defend EU, that now their entire politics is warped to be so one-dimensionally fucking stupid that every politician who's nominally supposedly in favor of these organizations, especially if they're anti-leftists, they have to cleave to. And any leftist who criticizes those organizations for doing exactly what they do, you know, neoliberalizing the fucking European Union and trying to attack every single welfare state and increase military spending, they have to support. What a surprise. I mean, like, literally, it stinks like CIA, but I think the CIA is more advanced at this point. They don't even have to, like, go and fund these people directly. They're just dumb enough to become brainwashed by the propaganda as it already is.
Through the ongoing takeover of the Lagardère Group, which owns the influential society magazine, Paris Match, an agenda-setting Sunday paper, Le Journal du Dimanche, and the radio station Europe 1.
Wow.
Europe 1's journalists knew that in 2015, when Bolloré took over E-Télé, a TV news channel, and E-Télé's employees then went on strike, their union lost that battle, and E-Télé became C-News. Europe 1's journalists tried the same tactic and got a similar result. Nearly 100 of them have since either quit or been fired, including Pascal Clark.
I was invited onto a TV program last year to celebrate 100 years of radio. It wasn't premeditated, but I ended up warning about the danger of Bolloré, who at the time was preparing to take control of Europe 1.
Vous savez qu'il y a peut-être un péril qui rôde. Ce serait pas une bonne nouvelle que Bolloré rachète Europe 1.
A few weeks later, I was fired, but I assure you, I would not have stayed.
Est un patron interventionniste.
Because Bolloré is an interventionist boss. He places men and a few women in key positions to establish his power, and all of a sudden the channel has a new editorial line.
Nouvelle ligne éditoriale.
C'est vrai qu'il y a des endroits où il y a des problèmes.
It is true that there are problems, and when the owner of a channel intervenes directly, I do not like that at all. But it would be completely hypocritical to believe that this is the first time this has happened. When I started out, it was governmental political power that intervened directly. Well, that's over now. And the multiplicity of channels means that today, the competition is greater than it ever was.
Competition is the value, chat. Truth, justice, rightness, correctness, journalistic objectivity, factual very interest of the public. That's out the window because we got competition. We got 5 channels with very attractive women in short skirts wearing stilettos. Woo, 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 telling you nonstop about the Muslims coming to kill you. Yay! Blasting your fucking face off with propaganda. We got 8 of those. Yay! Propaganda. Woo! I mean, literally, I have to say that I understand movements in the past that I had a hard time understanding before, understanding the brutality of the Red Terror and being like, how could it come to this? You know, kind of shaking my head and reading about, you know, the struggles of fighting against the fascists in Yugoslavia and the bloody hand-to-hand fighting and going, how could it come to this? It all makes a lot more sense. Makes a lot more sense now, honestly.
Vincent Bolloré's strategy, his playbook, is about takeovers and makeovers. And here at Europe 1, the makeover is well underway. Dissenting journalists have been replaced. Some of the new hires have come from C News.
Yep.
Each and every makeover results in more conservative content for French citizens preparing to cast their ballots.
There it is.
We asked a political
there
interviewer
it fucking
about that,
is.
one who works at both Europe 1 and C News.
Honestly.
At least we tried to.
Là, je peux pas, non, c'est pas normal. Dans tous les médias, c'est comme ça, et vous le savez, même chez vous.
After denying that there is editorial interference in those newsrooms, Sonia Mabrouk walked out of the interview, saying we had no right to broadcast it.
Moi, je peux pas.
The French media are overseen by regulators at Arcon, the agency formerly known as the CSA. But Bolloré's channels, including C News and Canal+, have made a mockery of the rules and regulations. Faced with the requirement to provide a balance of viewpoints on their air, C News sent Eric Zemmour out night after night, in prime time, and cynically balanced that out by putting opposing voices on at 4 a.m. when almost no one's watching. Since January 1st and the start of the election campaign, the rules have been tightened, but a few months of fairness won't make up for years of loaded messaging. Early last year, having issued several warnings to CNews, regulators fined the channel after Zemmour said
I mean, France at least has regulators. In America, this is just done without any fucking regulation at all. Just totally blasts off propaganda 24/7.
About migrant children.
They're thieves, murderers, rapists. That's all they are.
That cost the company 200,000 euros. For a billionaire like Bolloré, that amounts to chump change. The cost of doing business.
This
is a historic first, and especially with a regulator that doesn't do its job. I sent registered letters for 3 years to the CSA, the Superior Audiovisual Council, to say, what are you doing? What is happening inside Canal Plus
Christian
is
St. Dor,
against
thanks for the
journalistic
year.
ethics.
Emperor
They hardly
Pompey, thanks for
responded.
gifting a sub, and
I
Cameron,
call
thanks
the
for
CSA the
7 months.
Superior Slumber Council. They sleep.
We call them the chicken shit club in America.
Zemmour, who has been convicted many times for racial incitement. But what do the penalties amount to? Even when Zemmour is fined 30,000 euros, what is that against a net worth that is estimated at 4 million euros? These sanctions are not much of a deterrent compared to what he gains via these discriminatory and stigmatizing speeches.
A few weeks ago, there was a commission
One
of
of the things that
inquiry
people
in the
don't
Senate
know,
on
and
media.
I should stop here for a second and explain it. One of the things that people don't know is that Hitler became rich from doing speeches and winning defamation lawsuits. He literally was a grifter. So yeah, if the punishments for this shit is low, then it doesn't matter because you're making more money.
A concentration. Many of us expected
He was Tucker
real
Carlson
questions,
before. Yeah, I mean, he
pugnacious
would,
attacks.
I mean, if Hitler was alive today, he would be on a right-wing cable news channel.
On all the media owners who came before the commission. We were very disappointed. No French media owner had a bad time. It was like, hello sir, you are wonderful, your work is great.
Bonjour monsieur, vous êtes formidable.
And tell us why your work is so great. So all in all, we learned nothing.
Donc on a globalement rien appris.
The concentrated ownership of the French news media goes well beyond Vincent Bolloré. More than half of its television channels, 90% of national dailies, and 95% of weekly publications are controlled by just 11 billionaires. Several of them took a shine to Emmanuel Macron and his pro-business platform in 2017, smoothing his way to the Élysée Palace. President Macron has since taken a laissez-faire approach to deconcentrating the media sector. His government tacitly approves of another proposed merger involving TF1, the country's biggest broadcaster, and the media conglomerate M6.
The reality is that for decades, no French politician has dared to oppose media owners and pass real anti-concentration laws, because a political leader who takes that kind of initiative would immediately be attacked by those media owners.
These billionaires who take control of the media do not want real reporting. They want the media to serve their interests.
Exactly.
The only way to get reliable information in this country is for us to create independent media financed by the population.
Oh, fuck. I'm watching Al Jazeera coverage. I mean, like, the idea that independent media is going to be able to take on these media conglomerates with every fucking broadcast blaring their message, producers out the ass, advertising, message testing. Are you fucking kidding? What? And then I depend on the algorithm? The algorithm is saving me? You gotta be kidding me. How well I can set up a personality cult to make people want to watch me? Because that's what these shows are. Means TV is gonna take on Vivendi. I know, it's just no shot.
On that last point, the value of a more independent kind of journalism, France is seeing a boom in alternative media. Fresh new outlets, mostly based online, funded by their readers.
breaking stories that then find their way into the mainstream. Street Press is an investigative site based here in Paris. It describes its journalism as engagé, engaged in opposition to what needs to be opposed. It's known for some gonzo-style exposés of militancy on the French far right. We'll be hearing from its editor. We also interview a journalist at West France, the country's best-selling daily newspaper, who brought national attention to the emergence of a neo-Nazi sect in a part of the country that was a bastion of resistance to that kind of thinking. Two reporters now on the work they do.
Biden Press College is next to 15 months.
Quand on enquête, quand on travaille, quand on bosse sur l'extrême droite, on ne peut pas être neutre. Moi, je ne suis pas neutre vis-à-vis du racisme. On est clair avec nos lecteurs et avec nos interlocuteurs. On est un média qui combat l'extrême droite par le journalisme.
Nice sweater, bro. I'm the street press guy. Here's my golfing sweater.
Dans le cadre de cette campagne électorale, avec Street Press, on a lancé une newsletter hebdomadaire qui s'appelle FAF. FAF, c'est l'acronyme de France aux Français. C'est un mot qu'utilisent les gens d'extrême droite. C'est une newsletter qui sort chaque semaine, qui est entièrement gratuite. Pour le premier numéro, on a publié une enquête où on montre des soutiens d'Éric Zemmour s'entraîner dans une forêt au tir, tirant sur des caricatures. Une caricature de juifs, une caricature de musulmans, une caricature
of a Jew,
de noirs.
a Muslim, and a black person. What a surprise!
C'est Génération Z, le mouvement de jeunesse d'Éric Zemmour. Cette enquête, c'est une des premières qui va révéler à quel point dans l'entourage de ce candidat
aims to unite the right and far right.
L'union entre la droite et l'extrême droite, il y a en fait principalement l'extrême droite la plus radicale, celle que même le Rassemblement national de Marine Le Pen a tenté d'écarter.
Des gens qui ont une idéologie raciste, une idéologie haineuse et qui en plus sont équipés d'armes.
Quand on publie cette enquête, le jour même, elle a un certain écho médiatique. Je suis invité sur des plateaux de télé pour en parler face aux responsables de Génération Z.
Hey, it's a French Nick Fuentes! And by the way, he's instantly on fucking TV! Isn't that interesting? How these far-right people are always promoted? Everybody knows who Nick Fuentes is. Everybody knows who the slap in the face guy is. What's his name again? Fuck, I forgot, because he's been banned from everything, thank God. I'm undercutting my point by my brain not working well. Richard Spencer got covered by every mainstream outlet. Show me one outlet that's doing the same for the left. I mean, they're not doing shit. You don't see those people getting on television. Get the fuck out of here. Liberals will forever be ideologically hampered because they sit against both sides and take no position. Liberals are hegemonic. You forgetting him is proof deplatforming works? No shit, it works.
Qui est embêté, où on va continuer de parler d'Éric Zemmour, mais plus selon l'agenda médiatique, pensé, théorisé, mis en place par Zemmour et son équipe.
Je suis journaliste et je m'appuie sur des faits documentés.
Vous êtes militant aussi, je pense, monsieur Mollard.
Je suis journaliste.
Et surtout militant, on peut le rappeler.
Et quand on sort de ce plateau, dans les minutes qui suivent, je me souviens, je suis dans le taxi qui me ramène chez moi, dans les bouchons, de Paris le soir, et je vois les messages qui arrivent par dizaines.
Dozens of messages of what? Support?
On a nos locaux en banlieue parisienne. On va être obligé.
Oh, death threats. Oh, okay, death threats. Yeah.
Pour un média comme
no
le
shit. Yeah, I know what that's like.
Milliers d'euros d'investissement, c'est aussi compliqué pour le boulot des journalistes et des gens qui ne sont pas journalistes et qui travaillent dans l'entreprise, qui se retrouvent à vivre avec cette idée que peut-être qu'un jour, un groupuscule d'extrême droite va faire une descente chez nous pour s'en prendre à nous. C'est heureusement pas arrivé, mais c'est de l'ordre du possible. L'extrême droite, selon moi, porte en son sein un projet qui est antidémocratique et contre l'indépendance des médias. C'est dans son ADN de faire taire les médias et de faire taire en premier les médias qui enquêtent, qui vont fouiller dans leurs arrière-cuisines. Il y a 5 ans, Marine Le Pen était au second tour. Je faisais partie de la liste noire des journalistes interdits d'accès au QG de Marine Le Pen. 5 ans plus tard, on se retrouve à nouveau dans le viseur. Aujourd'hui, Éric Zemmour est surtout le candidat de l'extrême droite, celui qui porte le discours le plus virulent à l'encontre des étrangers et des musulmans.
Je refuse les mosquées gigantesques, cathédrales comme on dit. C'est-à-dire que je considère que la France doit rester, avec un paysage d'église.
Avec ces menaces de mort. Donc si elle arrive au pouvoir, j'ai aucun doute sur le fait que l'extrême droite fera tout pour faire taire la presse. Ce qui est important, c'est pas moi personnellement, on s'en fout de moi. On s'en fout que En tant qu'individu, j'ai été menacé. Mais ça devient un problème politique parce que je suis journaliste et parce que d'autres journalistes sont menacés.
Macron
et
wants
que dans
you
une période
threatened.
électorale, menacer les journalistes, c'est remettre en cause l'un des piliers de notre démocratie.
Thoughts around younger generations in Europe, France seem to be more drawn to right-wing ideology versus younger generations in the States. That's not true. Americans are just fucking right-wing. What? You fuck crazy? You fucking crazy?
À ce moment-là, le gouvernement n'a pas réagi. Au sein de la majorité présidentielle, seuls 2 députés ont publiquement montré leur soutien. En France, on a un système démocratique qui est pas parfait, mais qui permet l'existence d'une presse libre, indépendante. Elle doit perdurer. De plus en plus de médias appartiennent à une poignée d'hommes d'affaires, une dizaine. Il faut lutter contre cette concentration, ça j'en suis intimement convaincu. Et c'est une économie très précaire qu'il est important de renforcer si on veut continuer à avoir une presse indépendante.
I personally think that the media concentration is the #1 issue in the world. I think News Corp is the #1 threat to human life on the planet. Whatever it takes to destroy them needs to happen. They're oligarchs, exactly. But they're not Russian, so we only call them billionaires.
En octobre 2016, j'ai découvert un article dans mon journal et cet article racontait que des gens avaient déferlé dans les rues d'Angers au cri de « à mort les Noirs, à mort les Arabes ». On n'imaginait pas qu'on puisse avoir un phénomène raciste violent qui émerge en fait dans cette ville. Donc c'est pour ça que j'ai quitté un peu ma rubrique de chroniqueur judiciaire pour m'intéresser à ce qui se passait à l'intérieur des réseaux d'extrême droite à Angers. Alors d'abord, il y a eu beaucoup de travail sur Internet de la veille, où on a googlisé beaucoup de noms, de personnes, des noms de groupes, pour essayer de comprendre de qui il s'agissait. À la tête de ce groupe, notamment 2 frères, les frères Ghana. Les frères Ghana sont des...
This is the French Gavin McGinnis. Everything is the same. Everything is the fucking same. The same chinless freak. They have the same shit. Here, I'll show you. Wait, Gavin McGinnis is Canadian too? We have got to deport all political Canadians. We need to deport all political Canadians. This will be the first plank in my platform. Political Canadians are banned until we could figure out what the hell is going on. People talk about, I mean, the Canadians are not sending their bests. It's the same guy. It's the same guy. If this guy looked down, he would look like this. This is Gavin McGinnis, the most chinless freak in the planet.
Fils de Pascal Ghana.
It's not complicated. Do you think the billionaires are hiring left-wing Canadians for their channels? No, of course not.
Était le responsable régional du Front National. Donc on retrouvait à l'intérieur de ce groupe des gens qui étaient directement avec...
Okay, he's French Canadian, so he's not included. Thank you. Thanks for the year. I really appreciate that.
L'extrême droite politique française. On a découvert que les mêmes personnes qu'on avait identifiées dans les actions violentes avaient commencé à s'organiser.
Oui, l'alvarium, ça veut dire ruche en latin. Alors tu vois, le logo est plutôt joli, on dirait un logo de start-up sympatoche. Mais en fait, c'est la plus grande association d'extrême droite à Angers.
On retrouve beaucoup d'actions violentes dans lesquelles on retrouvait des gens de l'alvarium, dans lesquelles des gens de l'alvarium ont participé. Il y en avait vraiment un nombre incroyable. Au mois de mai 2021, on a eu une agression en fait aux abords du local de l'alvarium. On a eu des dents cassées, on a eu un plancher orbital enfoncé, on a eu des blessures assez importantes.
Oui, nous sommes juste devant l'alvarium, le local de l'alvarium. Donc c'est ici que l'association, le groupe en fait.
Nous avons adopté ce matin la dissolution de l'Alvarium, un groupement qui appelait à la haine.
Les gens de l'Alvarium ont l'interdiction de se réunir, de manifester ou d'organiser des événements. Ils ont l'interdiction totale de le faire pour l'instant. C'est assez curieux de voir cet endroit qui a été abandonné en quelque sorte, puisque...
That's the 17 months.
Donc voilà, ce sont des
Canada has a monument to an SS formed regiment. We've talked about this many times.
Plutôt de haine contre ces gens, parce que la présence de ce lieu dans le centre-ville d'Angers a provoqué beaucoup d'hostilité.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Chaque fois qu'on publiait une information en lien avec l'extrême droite.
See, one of the things that makes me so disgusted, I'm so tired of the fucking orbiter debate, bro, scum online. Ugh.
Notamment sur les réseaux sociaux, notamment sur Twitter, il y avait des réactions. On a été visés, mes collègues où on leur reproche ce qu'ils font, on se moque d'eux. Mais moi,
I searched Gavin McInnes chin, and there is a Gavin McInnes has no chin album. That's incredible. Here's Gavin McInnes, right. I started this gang called the Proud Boys. Why is the greatest champions of the white race always turn out to be the worst examples of it? You? Where the fuck is your chin?
Jean-Luc Ganet se sert de mes origines.
Like a worm, dude.
En fait, il dit
like a worm. Snakes at least have like
je lance
have
des
like cheeks.
Comme si en fait j'étais issu d'un peuple primitif.
J'avais parlé de Jean-Paul Sartre qui prenait sa plume pour une épée et j'avais dit que notre journaliste guadeloupéen prenait sans doute la sienne pour une sagaie. Ah.
Je ne dépose pas plainte par principe, sauf quand il passe la ligne jaune et qu'il profère des insultes racistes. J'ai des enfants qui ont besoin de savoir que leur père ne va pas se laisser faire dans ce genre de situation.
Cette histoire a marqué les esprits localement. Ça a été un événement qui a...
Okay, chat. I like this, but the reporter stuff, okay, we're good. We'll move on to the next video.
The top job in France. The first round of the vote finished with no clear winner. It's a tight race in the second round, so can the far right win? And what would that mean?
Yes, the far right can win. And this is the thing that you need to understand, is that now, because of dipshits, because of scum, especially liberals, Macron is against Le Pen, which again risks fascism. And this is what the liberals do. They set this up. You hate them. You despise them. No one likes them. Enthusiasm is zero. Enthusiasm is fucking zero. What are you gonna do? Let the fascist win? What are you gonna do? Let the fascist win? Almost final result of the French first round election. Mélenchon just 1.46% lower than Le Pen. Even the Communist Party votes would have easily put him in the second round, let alone Soc Dems and Greens. All of them didn't even get past the 5% threshold for funding. Great job. Why do we have 8,000 left-wing parties? Lesser evilism is not a principle liberals adhere to. It's a cudgel they use to cynically and morally browbeat the left into submission when it suits them. Whenever it's the left on the ballot, they sabotage them in favor of the far right as if necessary. Look at this shit, chat. Jeremy Corbyn was just 2,227 votes away from chance to be prime minister. If the Labour leader had won 7 seats narrowly taken by conservatives, it would have had the opportunity to form a progressive alliance with all of the smaller parties. It's going to be a long night. How members of Labour's senior management team campaigned to lose. A leaked report reveals the extent in which senior Labour figures sought to undermine their own party's chances. The product of an extensive internal investigation, the report contains hundreds of pages of evidence, including WhatsApp messages and emails implicating former members of the party's senior management team, including the former General Secretary Ian McNicol. The following conversations, which took place 13 January 2017 to the week after the election that June, depict a disloyal, dysfunctional culture at the top of the party, one which held Labour's twice-elected leadership, party members, and any MPs they disagreed with in contempt. Far from a few bad apples, the messages expose systemic and sustained efforts to undermine the leadership by multiple figures and director-level positions. For many, that will make this material all the more appalling is that Labour was less than 2,500 votes away from forming a government in 2017. After winning 40% of the popular vote, the party's best results since 1997. And not only that, so what is the lesson to be learned here? Learn the lesson! Learn it! The liberals want you to lose, and they'll lose to Trump. If Bernie had won, they would have tried to lose to Trump. If you allow any of them to remain, they must be purged. Whenever you win the party, that means you fire everyone, and you get them all out. What was Corbyn's mistake? He let them stay. He should have fired them all and let them go form the cuck party. Literally, by the way, that's not a joke. I'm not calling them cucks because I hate liberals. They formed cuck party. Neoliberal MPs form cuck party. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Change UK, aka the Cuck Party. CUK, the Cuck Party. The Independent Group for Change, also known as Change UK, was a centrist pro-European Union political party founded in February 2019 and dissolved 10 months later. Shortly after all its MPs lost their seats. They were dissatisfied by Labour's leftward political direction under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, its approach to Brexit, and its handling of allegations of anti-Semitism. They will never, ever do anything but stab you in the back. Learn the goddamn lesson.
For France, this is Inside Story.
Learn it. Hey, Crackle Barrel, I wanted to say something. I think I'm going to reject your friend request, buddy.
Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Nick Clark. President Macron is in the north of France already campaigning for a runoff election on April the 24th. He's on top after the first round of voting took place on Sunday. He wants to become the first French president to be re-elected in the last 20 years. But his contender, Marine Le Pen, is not far behind, determined to start her own presidency by winning the runoff. Polling suggests a much tighter race this time than when the two last faced each other back in 2017.
You don't have one,
more than
Hackstock.
26% of the population abstained from casting a ballot on the first round. Bernard Smith filed this report now from Paris.
Emmanuel Macron only did one campaign rally, but the man who brands himself a centrist did enough to have a chance of being the first incumbent French president in 20 years to win a second term. Again, though, he'll have to beat the far right.
À tous nos compatriotes qui se sont tournés vers l'abstention.
To all the French who chose to abstain or the vote on the extreme, either because they're angry, faced with persistent inequality, a damaged planet, everyday insecurity, the difficulty to make a decent living despite working hard. I want to convince them in the coming days.
His opponent in the second round of voting will again be Marine Le Pen, leader of the National Rally. Its manifesto includes a promise to make it illegal for Muslim women to wear headscarves in public places.
Your vote depends all over the French territory on the legitimate preponderance of the French culture and language, the customs of our regions and the French way of life, on Republican laws and values.
Le Pen might pick up votes from supporters of Eric Zemmour, another extreme right candidate. The former TV pundit has asked his supporters to back her in the second round. The far left's Jean-Luc Mélenchon had hoped that this time he might make it to the runoff, but again he didn't quite get enough votes. France's traditional right and left-wing parties continue to hemorrhage support. The Conservative, the Republicans Party under Valérie Pécresse saw their share of the vote collapse to single digits. The Socialists under Anne Hidalgo have been all but wiped out, their share of the vote barely registered. The beneficiary of those former Conservative and Socialist votes seems again to be Macron.
We actually ask the French voters to support actually a strong European front for the next turn of the election in 2 weeks.
I believe we have a good record and we have a worked out plan with a vision for the future for the young, our country and for the workers.
To the left, Macron has promised higher pensions and more staff in healthcare. For the right, thousands more police officers and judges and a rise in the retirement age from 62 to 65. So now there'll be 2 weeks of intense campaigning for Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen. Most of the losing candidates have urged their supporters not to let Le Pen win, so Macron could benefit from their votes. But the far right won a combined 33% share of the vote in the first round, so an upset cannot be ruled out. Bernard Smith, Inside Story, Paris.
Well, the merging of the right wing into the far right is one of the biggest developments of this election. Marine Le Pen and Eric Zemmour's combined poll ratings amount to an unprecedented 30% plus for the far right in France, whose parties are more united than those on the left. The far right agree on what they say is the necessity for France to re-establish its full sovereignty from the European Union. They also want to limit or end immigration, and some of the right wing go as far as saying Islam is incompatible.
Absolutely terrible. Is there a left-wing party or coalition that votes in lockstep in any country? Yeah, Bolivia, Brazil. You just had that happen in Peru. You just had it happen in Chile. There's all sorts of really great left-wing parties happening in Latin America. Lula is up by like 20 points in the polls in Brazil. You know, it's just the English-speaking and world. You know, the Germans just won power with the center-left won power without even using the far left. You know, the far left in Germany was not part of the coalition. They went with the liberals instead, which is that doesn't bode well, in my opinion. But
with the French Republic
collapse in Peru. Well, yeah, I mean, Peru was always a long shot.
A fringe movement to a mainstream political force.
Yeah, I know,
in
DJ
France,
Addy.
and
We'll
that's
talk
been
about
fueled
it.
by economic grievances and security fears after ISIL attacks on French soil. All right, let's bring in our guests from Paris. We have Jacques Rolland, who is a senior research fellow at the Global Policy Institute. From Newcastle in England on Skype, Marianne Bogain, who's a senior lecturer in French and politics at Northumbria University. And Elizabeth Moutet joins us. She's a Paris-based columnist for The Telegraph and Unheard online magazine. A warm welcome to you all. Everybody will look at the results first, and then we'll project onto what might happen in the second round and the crucial parliamentary elections and that upcoming TV debate. But first, the first round results. And Elizabeth, you have written how...
And by the way, Chad, if you, I didn't make this argument against Macron sufficiently. So let me make it for you very clearly. I've just been kind of assuming you all know Macron is bad. I've just been assuming it, but I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that because people are going to watch the stream who don't know what they're talking about. And then they're going to be like, you think we should elect Le Pen? You think we should elect Le Pen? Islamo-leftism. France enters its McCarthyist era. The French government's Islamo-leftism accusations against academia threaten academic freedom. In recent weeks, another wave of political polarization hit France as the concept of Islamo-leftism occupied center stage in a heated cultural debate. In an interview with CN News, the French equivalent of Fox News, Higher Education and Research Minister Frédérique Vidal was asked whether or not she agreed that Islamo-leftism is plaguing university. Her response was instant and shocking. Islamo-leftism is plaguing the entire society, she declared. His government already launched a brutal campaign aimed at intimidating the Muslim community and suppressing its civil society organizations. Among other repressive measures, it dissolved the Collective Contra Islamophobia in France, Collective Against Islamophobia in France, which defended Muslim victims of Islamophobia within the legal framework of the Republic. But Macron wants to go beyond attacking the Muslim community and is now taking aim at the left as well. And in doing so, he is taking a page from the playbook of one of his main rivals, Marine Le Pen, president of the far-right National Rally. The idea of Islamo-leftism is something she popularized in her first presidential campaign in 2012. It now appears that Macron's politics have swung so far to the right, he has fully embraced the language of National Rally by starting a public crusade against the imagined Islamist leftist conspiracy in French society. He hopes not only to steal some of Le Pen's votes, but also to undermine the left. Macron is specifically taking an aim at the leftist La French Insoumis. I can't speak French. France Unbowed. That's Mélenchon's party. Its leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, is the only politician to denounce Islamophobia. The only politician to denounce Islamophobia and French Muslim stigmatization that has a chance. He was the only party head who attended the march against Islamophobia in 2019. The only party head! What? By adopting Le Pen's racist language and demonizing the left, and specifically Mélenchon's party, Macron hopes to emerge again as the compromise candidate, the lesser evil, who the French people will vote for to avoid a far-right government and still feel protected from the Islamist boogeyman. So, now you know, Islamo-leftist conspiracy? That's Macron. Can we get some fish hooks in the chat? Can we get some motherfucking fish hooks in the chat? Fish hook theory is a fact. Fish hook theory is a fact. Centrists, liberals hate socialists more than fascists. It's just that simple. There is significant overlap between their electorate. These supposedly leftist voters don't seem to be too bothered by Le Pen's rampant racism. Excuse me? Every leftist in their right mind should be pro-EU and pro-NATO. The former assures that Europeans don't murder each other. No, it doesn't. While the latter that Russia doesn't murder Europeans. Right now, we can all see what happens when a European country isn't in NATO, for example. In this French election, Macron is the best choice. Both Le Pen and Mélenchon are objectively terrible. Excuse me? You racist, Islamophobic piece of trash? With the only major difference between a leftist and a far-right candidate is the racism, that should be a warning sign to the leftist electorate. That's not the only major... What a lying sack of shit! What a piece of garbage! An incredible debate. Macron's Minister on the Interior tells Marine Le Pen she is soft on Islam. Le Pen, quite stunned, then defends French citizens' rights to religious freedom against the government. French Emmanuel Macron's government will introduce France's first quotas to regulate immigration. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Macron is the racist, you dumb fuck. If liberal sock-dems actually believe in lesser evilism, they would vote for leftists against fascists. They would have voted for Corbyn instead of gleefully smearing him as evil Hitler 2.0. They would have voted for Mélenchon to prevent Le Pen advancing to the second round. They don't believe in it as a principle. And if it's not a principle, it's just a cynical tool for morally browbeating people on the left into submission when it's useful for them. Well, fuck that shit. I'm not playing along with that bullshit, and I hope others aren't either. And so, you know, this stuff, I know French politics isn't people's biggest concern. When you see the first results come in later today with likely Macron-Le Pen second round, remember that Soc Dems and Greens could have easily voted for the leftist Mélenchon to prevent fascist Le Pen from going through, but they much prefer that matchup. The Green and Soc Dem candidates spent the last few weeks focusing on smearing Mélenchon while he was in third place and came close to overtaking Le Pen. Strangely, just with Corbyn, the lesser evil argument fell away. Strangely, they're totally fine with a fascist winning. There was a good piece of why it would be best if Mélenchon proceeded to the second round, as it would mean actual issues of economy were discussed instead of a race between who could be more racist and Islamophobic. But naturally, French Soc Dems and Greens pulled a Neera Tandon/Lib Dem. By the way, I'm writing in the past tense as if it's already happened. I'm going by the polling, but Mélenchon still has a shot. If I were in France, I'd definitely vote for him. And I've been campaigning for him from the start of his campaign because, exactly as I said, and this is the results. And it ended up narrowing. Mélenchon made a late gain with the late votes. So he ended up losing by less than 2% to Le Pen. Fucking gross, man.
Le Pen was almost a write-off 3 months ago. What happened?
Well, I also wrote last week that she had made an extraordinary comeback, actually almost a resurrection. It's very interesting because it's a combination of what she's been trying to do for the past at least 4 or 5 years and a situation in which she mechanically looked more quote-unquote moderate because...
Which Pepe Law post? I haven't seen a proper united leftist front in Europe condemning the Russian invasion, nor do I see a big leftist push to supply Ukraine with weapons. As an example, I've seen Boris Johnson parading around in Kiev like he's Winston Churchill. Meanwhile, Jeremy Corbyn is dicking around at a food co-op somewhere in the UK. Excuse me? Who said that? Is that Adam something? I don't even want to read his garbage.
The advent of Éric Zemmour, a new player who's a former columnist for Le Figaro and who looked and sounded more hardline than she did. So suddenly the entire effort that she's put into rebranding her party, changing...
By the way, in case you don't know, Jeremy Corbyn opposed the Russian invasion, you fucking clown.
From National Front to National Rally, which is more consensual, toning down her platform, and we can talk about this further, and even sort of giving off personal vibes. By the way, what was her personality?
Since they talk about how Le Pen had a big comeback, well, Squirrel has been covering this election very, 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 very good coverage on this. And I recommend everyone follow the Squirrel. Obviously, she has really great takes on a pretty regular basis. But she talked about, I don't know if it was her, but basically, Le Pen started making her massive comeback. Le Pen started making her massive comeback when Macron announced he was going to raise the retirement age in France. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe it wasn't her, but when France announced they were going to raise the retirement age, Macron was going to make that part of his platform. That was a key turning point in the election where Le Pen started rising. Le Pen's father tried to transform the party from making it mainstream since 2002. We saw it today as the result. I mean, eventually they're going to win.
Being somebody
a tactic,
who
thanks to the
was
5-2-1.
milder, who was less abrasive, somebody who gave
Le Pen and
smaller
Mélenchon.
rallies
Yeah,
of
exactly.
competitors and didn't shy from admitting to mistakes, from saying that things sometimes went wrong. All of this built up a kind of constituency that related to her, and everybody has sort of been counting the Zemmour vote into the Marine Le Pen vote in 2 weeks' time. She's got a core constituency that were people that voted communist 25 years ago, and she, at least 1/3 of Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the hard leftist voters, may actually vote for her in 2 weeks' time, because she speaks for the working class and she has a very left-wing social program in terms of benefit and changes, except that she wants it only for the French.
Ariane Bourgain, do you agree with that? What's your overview of how this panned out?
Yeah, I agree with what's being said. I think her strategy paid off. She decided very early on that she will focus on cost of living, and it has been rising in France. As as has just been said, she was made even more moderate by Zemmour, and I think as well, Macron, for me, had a really bad campaign in the first round. He started very late. He refused to do any debate, and his messaging was terrible because the main take away that voters, ordinary voters who don't have time or inclination to read through the program line by line, the only thing that they remembered was you'll have to work longer. So it's a strategy paid off, and there was also some tactical voting from Zemmour voter and from the Republican right voters to ensure that she is in the second round.
Thank you, MindFad, for finding this for me. See if you can find when Macron announced he was going to raise the retirement age. See if you can pick. So look at this graph, chat. Look at this graph. When do you think Macron announced he was going to raise the retirement age? Communist voting for a fascist seems like a good idea. Never going to backfire. Obviously, I would never advocate voting for Le Pen. But at this point, I would feel that the Macron election. I mean, honestly, I don't have an answer for you. I think electoralism has failed utterly in France at this point. I mean, because liberals have constructed this boogeyman, and I think, listen. Macron is proposing the same policies.
So I agree.
Why on earth would you make raising the retirement age a campaign promise? He's an ideological neoliberal. It's not complicated. That's what he believes.
With what's been said, but I think we shouldn't underestimate.
You're not supposed to say what you want austerity. You're supposed to make a word salad to make it not. That's a good point, but he fucked up.
So that Macron had a bad campaign, in my opinion.
All right, Macron had a bad campaign. Jacques Relan, do you think the first round ended up being tighter than Emmanuel Macron thought it would?
Yes, I'm sure. Yes, I agree with both speakers that Le Pen made a good campaign, Macron made a terrible campaign, and I think he suffered a bit from hubris. Like especially the reform of the pension age that he wants to raise to 65. He announced it in his first big address to the French people at a time where he was riding at 32% in the opinion polls. But it's a measure which has actually displeased many people in France. Working to 65, it was, and also linking some supplementary benefits to extra work or training on the part of workers. That has upset a lot of people on the left, and that's where he has gained some support, and that's why many people on the left, especially on the far left, are very opposed to Macron. There's a sense of hatred even towards him, and now I think he's realized his mistake, and that at the time he thought that he needed to take votes away from Valérie Pécresse, but as we see, Valérie Pécresse has fallen under 5%, so there are not many votes to be gained there. If he wants to gain votes in the second round, they have to come from the left. So the nature of this campaign will have to change. He will have to campaign much more, announce some more measures, and there will be a big debate, and he has to show to the French people that his program is not a very liberal, right-wing program, but it's a balanced program with measures to help the work.
Oh, get the fuck out of here with this trash. Did you see Adam something say vote to Macron over Mélenchon, and Mélenchon and Le Pen are the same? Yeah. It's actually Macron and Le Pen are the same.
Working classes and the poor and the weak, which he started today by going campaigning on the hunting ground of the far left, or the hunting ground of Marine Le Pen in the north of France, in a town where the majority of people voted for Marine Le Pen, and he has to convince
He's going to get fucking destroyed. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he outright loses, to be honest with you.
That is policies will be more beneficial to them than those of Le Pen. And I don't think it would be
You have a choice between a neoliberal zealot and a little anti-Semite fascist. You got it.
Loads of promises to all people. The speech she made last night, there was money for everyone. She was going to the weak, the poor, the old, the young, etc. It was a list, it was a catch-all kind of speech.
All right, Jacques.
We'll just demagogic.
Let me move it back to Anne-Elisabeth. So Jacques Relan says, Anne-Elisabeth, that Macron has realised his mistake. Will it be enough? He himself admits that it's certainly not over yet, and poll predictions for the second round are well within the margin of error. As our reporter Bernard Smith says, it's not out of this world to imagine that Le Pen could win this.
I think, yes, it's very interesting because the cross-voting and the people who sort of voted on one side are arguing to vote for somebody whom you wouldn't think at first hand is, major. I've just mentioned the Mélenchon voters voting for Marine Le Pen. But on the other side, you've got. I know Zemmour voters who will vote for Emmanuel Macron because they felt, rightly or wrongly, that their candidate was still forward-looking and modern and wanted to create a sort of large right-wing party that would have been something like, I don't know, if you, in British terms, the Tory party with added Nigel Farage, for instance. Whereas they find that Marine Le Pen is much more rigid and backwards-looking, and that constituency does exist. It's very complicated to calculate the votes on either side. I think Emmanuel Macron probably should win it, but the entire campaign has been painted in the first and second round. The first round is very new, as a kind of what, again, the British would call Project Fear. The other one is evil. So
right, and that's not gonna work. You can only push that button so many times, chat. People hate the status quo. They hate liberals. They hate the neoliberal austerity. They don't like their lives getting worse. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
On the hard right, people say, look, Emmanuel Macron is the man who's bringing in foreigners. He's the man who's abandoning sovereignty of France to Europe, all sorts of things. And on the other side, you've got essentially the great line of, let's have a new Front contre le fascisme, which was a great movement against fascism in the 1930s in France. And it's not going to be a very grown-up campaign. And where Marine Le Pen is shrewd, is that she always brings back the situation with the hardships that people are experiencing, especially now that inflation is going up. Macron now suffers from something from last time. Last time he was new. Many people voted for him because he was the new guy, he was younger, he annoyed all the others, and therefore he was a safe populist vote, somebody who still had the competencies within the French technostructure, and somebody who annoyed the other candidates, the incumbents left and right. This time he's been in power for 5 years. In his big rally at La Défense, West Paris, he talked about care, homes, personal, he talked about doctors, he talked about all sorts of people who were suffering, and the immediate reaction of so many people is, well, who was president at that time? You were. So it's going to be tight, it's difficult to predict. I still think, like the bookmakers, that Macron will squeeze through, but it's going to be difficult.
There is this long-lasting discontent, isn't there, over Macron's personality. He's deemed arrogant by many, and maybe that arrogance was on display in the fact that he didn't take part in much of the electoral campaign. Ariane Bourgain, how do you see it panning out this second round?
Yeah, again, I agree. It's going to be much tighter than in 17. And, in 17, it was the new kid on the block. And a lot of people gave him the benefit of the doubt. Now he's the incumbent. He has a whole presidency under his belt. And people know what he did. And he generated a lot of anger, a lot of hatred in some quarters, a lot of discontentment. So it's much easier for Marine Le Pen to point at, this is what he did. Do you want the same for 5 years? Whereas in 17, it was hypothesis of what he might do. I think it will really come down to abstention rate on the left and to how many Mélenchon voters will switch to Le Pen. There was a study this morning, I believe, that suggested 30% will abstain of Mélenchon voters, 30% will vote for Le Pen. This is going to be the crucial point. How high is the abstention going to be on the left, and how many voters from Mélenchon will switch? I think he might squeeze through, but it's not going to be, 66-34 like it was last time.
Right, Jacques, that's very interesting, isn't it? It will be key, the number of abstentions, won't it? Because, isn't abstaining effectively a vote for Le Pen?
Yes, but the far left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon's slogan, appeal, was to say to the people, do not vote for Marine Le Pen. But he did not say vote for Macron, obviously. But that's been the case for most of the leaders, except Éric Zemmour and Éric Ciotti, as a Republican Pécresse backer. So there's a few people have called for a vote to Le Pen. But quite a lot have said, even on the left, the ecologists in Anne Hidalgo have clearly said, even Valérie Pécresse has clearly said that she would vote for Macron. As for the Zemmour voter, I agree with Anne-Elisabeth that some of them will not want to vote for Le Pen because they think the economic program is incoherent. And that's we can see in this divide in France that Macron appeals to the French who are doing well, and Marine Le Pen appeals to those who find it hard to make ends meet. But in the debate, that's
Pathetic, man. Working class people, struggling people, poor people voting for the far right. Fucking pathetic, man.
I think the key point would be for Macron to show in these next 2 weeks that his program is the one who is best suited to the interest of the working class people who voted out of anger towards Le Pen. And in that sense, he's got something to back it up because his record is very good, especially on unemployment. During his mandate, more than 1.2 million jobs were created, and French employment rate is at its lowest that it's been for a long time. It was not even an issue. The issue was the cost of living, and even there, Macron will be able to prove if there is a debate, and the debate on television will be crucial, whether Marine Le Pen has improved her competence in the field of economics.
Right, exactly, because she really struggled back in 2017, didn't she, Ariane?
Yes.
That, as Jacques says, that TV debate, I think it's on the 20th, is going to be a real pivot point.
Yes, definitely. I mean, last time round it was a car crash, and it really cost her, dearly. I mean, she appeared totally incompetent in 2017. So, you would think that she would have learned from it, and that she would be a bit better this time round. But yeah, it is going to be crucial, and Macron will have to push her on all her economic promises, because if you look at a program, it's there's something for everybody. Great. But how do you finance it? So he will ask all those questions, and Marine Le Pen will have to hope that she does much better than in 17, because otherwise it will be very easy for Macron to highlight that she's incompetent, that she doesn't have the competence, that she doesn't know how to deal with crisis the way he had to do during his presidency. So the debate is key as well as essential in my view.
Okay, I'd like to continue that side of the conversation, but we've got to move it on. I want to talk about the French traditional parties, Anne Elizabeth. We've only got 6 or 7 minutes left.
And by the way, Chad, the Socialist Party of France elected and put into power neoliberals who destroyed the party, Macron being one of them. And then Macron ejected out of the Socialist Party to create his own centrist hell party. He was finance minister for the Socialist Party, and it's been totally annihilated.
What's
the
happening
left
here
of the party went to Mélenchon, the right of the party goes to Macron.
Politics. Is that it for the traditional parties, for the conservative right and the socialist left?
I think it's I think it's actually rather bad, because what we end up having is one candidate of the great and the good, who is Emmanuel Macron, and two essentially bogey men or women, bogey persons, and that's not good for democracy. You no longer have an opposition who you disagree with, but they are honourable people, and that's a real problem. And that is entirely the doing of Emmanuel Macron. He came 5 years ago, seemingly out of nowhere. He'd been in the cabinet for 18 months with François Hollande, so socialist. He was not a member of the Socialist Party himself. When he came in, he said, I'm going to do things en même temps, at the same time, left and right. You don't have to choose between left and right. And he started shaving off personalities from the right and the left, and he always picked sort of compatible, docile personalities, and he gave them jobs and forbade them to have political ideas of their own. And then he peopled the National Assembly with essentially clones of himself in many ways. And the result was a sort of
we talked about
anemic national sort of politics life, which reduced the the extent of the debate. That, I think, is bad for democracy. I think because he, at the end of the day, his nature is that he's a civil servant. He's a top Mandarin. He was at the Ministry of Finance. He graduated top of his class, almost top of his class, at ENA, the French government school. He is used to people obeying him and not people talking back to him.
Okay.
And that's really why he decided that he would make a new system at his image, which I think is really wrong for democracy.
Jacques, do you think, in a sense, Macron, by emasculating the traditional parties, he's actually empowered his own opposition?
What is very interesting is, yes, Macron destroyed the Socialist Party in 2017, and now he has destroyed the right, the Republican Party. The two parties which have dominated French political life for the last 50 years are now in tatters. So what's going to happen after? Macron has a catch-all vote all in the middle. And what you're going to see on the right is a recomposition, i.e. The hard right, Le Pen, the people in the Republican Party who back Le Pen, like Ciotti, the right wing of the Republican, who were split like the socialists were split in 2017 between governance and more radical, plus the Zemmour voters. All of that would add up to a very hard right party on the right, which could gather about 35% of the voters, and have policies a bit similar to the British Tory party, very nationalist, very protectionist, and at the same time very hostile to foreigners. So that's likely. It will be likely to happen. We will see during the parliamentary election how it will shape up.
Funny you should say that. I'm going to just move it on to that, because we need to get into the parliamentary elections. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I'm sorry to interrupt, Jacques. So Ariane, a president with no majority has no power. We've got the parliamentary elections coming up in the summer. Traditionally, the winning presidency gets the majority in parliament. Do you think it's going to be a different ball game this time around?
Yes, certainly if Marine Le Pen wins.
If leftists started goose-stepping everywhere and promised to only give social benefits to white people, do you think they could win more elections? No. Then they wouldn't be leftists at that point. Also, leftists would reject that. It wouldn't work. We're about to cover Santa Claus in a minute.
Ever since they changed the timing of the parliamentary election and put them after the presidential election, there's a momentum going in. However, I don't see Marine Le Pen winning an absolute majority just on a row. We also know that power attracts, and I'm sure she will be able to attract people, coming from the traditional right, possibly even people from the left who are more the kind of sovereignist left. But it is going to be difficult to get a majority. And obviously, depending on the majority, she will be able to implement a program or not. We might even end up in a period of cohabitation. You never know. If she wins and people suddenly feel, right, okay, we better rectify this, we might end up with, Le Pen president and a left-wing prime minister. So it's very much up in the air. And I think you are right to really point to the fact that the parliamentary election is the key election, because without a majority, presidents do not have power. If Macron wins, I think it's more likely for him to have a majority, maybe not an absolute majority, but enough to create, a kind of coalition of the willing, so to speak.
Okay, we'll closely follow this, of course, here on Al Jazeera over the next 2 weeks, very closely indeed. It's all we've got time for. Jacques Roland, Ariane Bourgain, and Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, we do appreciate your time.
All right, Chad. That's going to be my definitive French election coverage for now. It's an absolute disaster. We live in the worst of all possible worlds. A bit long for the stream, but this is a superb doc on abstention in France. Yeah, and it looks like right now 50% of Mélenchon voters are not going to vote in the second round. So the odds that Le Pen has a very good shot of winning this. Like, why does it matter? We're far away from that country. Yeah, good point. Very good point, bud. Really good point.